The champagne flutes froze midair, the whispers died, and my father's face drained of every last drop of color. I stood in the doorway of my sister's Atlanta wedding reception, wearing success like armor, a woman they didn't recognize holding power they couldn't fathom. For 10 years, I'd been erased. The daughter cast out like trash. The failure with no future. They deleted from family photos and holiday dinners. But then the groom took the microphone, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the CEO investing in our company's future, Monica Johnson." The room didn't just gasp. It shattered. My mother's hand trembled against her champagne glass. My sister's wedding smile cracked like porcelain, and my father, the man who threw me out with nothing but a suitcase, and his contempt looked like he'd seen a ghost rise from the grave he'd dug for me. They had no idea that the failure sleeping in her car a decade ago had become a billionaire. They didn't know I already owned their crumbling empire, and they certainly weren't prepared for what I was about to reveal next. Because this isn't just a story about revenge. It's about what happens when the daughter they destroyed becomes the woman who holds their entire world in her hands. Stay until the end, because what they did to me is only the beginning. What I'm about to do to them. That's where the real story starts. My name is Monica Johnson. I'm 38 years old, and I'm the CEO of a venture capital firm that manages over $10 billion in assets. But 10 years ago, I was nobody. I was the daughter my family threw away like yesterday's trash, the one they called the failure with no future. Tonight, I'm about to walk back into their lives uninvited, and they have no idea what's coming. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom gleams with crystal chandeliers and ivory roses. My sister Jasmine always did have expensive taste, even when it was someone else's money paying for it. I stand in the marble hallway just outside the reception, smoothing down my elegant black dress. It's Valentino, perfectly tailored, the kind of dress that whispers wealth without shouting it. My reflection in the gilt-edged mirror shows a woman I barely recognize myself sometimes. Polished, powerful, unbreakable. Nothing like the girl they threw out a decade ago. I take a breath and push open the doors. The effect is immediate, though subtle at first. Conversations don't stop, but they stutter. Heads turn with that curious tilt people get when they sense someone important has entered the room but can't quite place who. I move through the crowd with practiced grace, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, my heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "Who is that woman?" I hear someone whisper. "I don't know, but look at that dress. She must be somebody important." I am, but not in the way they think. My eyes sweep the room with clinical precision, cataloging every detail. The same type of hydrangeas my mother insisted on for every family event. The same jazz quartet playing the same tired standards. Even the champagne tastes the same expensive, chosen more for the label than the quality. Some things never change in the Johnson family. Appearances always mattered more than substance. Then I see them. My mother stands near the head table in a powder blue gown, diamonds at her throat that I recognize from every Christmas card photo. She's laughing at something someone said, her head thrown back in that practiced way she has, the one that photographs beautifully. But then her gaze drifts across the room and lands on me. The laughter dies in her throat. Her hand shoots out to grip my father's arm, champagne sloshing dangerously in her glass. I watch her mouth form words I can't hear from this distance, see the color drain from her face like someone pulled a plug. My father follows her stare, and when his eyes meet mine, I see something I've never seen in them before. Fear. Good. The chandelier above us is the same one that hung at my 10th birthday party. I remember standing beneath it in a pink dress, blowing out candles while my family sang. My father had his arm around my shoulders, then proud of his little girl. Jasmine had been jealous of the attention, pouting in the corner. Mother had taken 1,000 photos, fussing over every detail. That was before I disappointed them. Before I refused to be the daughter they wanted. Before I became their convenient scapegoat for everything wrong in their perfect family portrait. Jasmine appears in my line of sight, radiant in her wedding gown. It's excessive, even by her standards, layers of silk and lace, A train that requires 2 attendants, a bodice dripping with crystals that probably cost more than most people's cars. She's mid-laugh, surrounded by bridesmaids playing the role of blushing bride to perfection. Then someone points in my direction. Her smile freezes like a video paused mid-frame. Our eyes lock across the crowded room. I see recognition war with disbelief on her face. Is that Monica? It can't be. Monica was a failure. Monica had nothing. Monica disappeared into obscurity where she belonged. I raise my champagne glass to her in a small private salute. The whispers start in earnest, now spreading through the crowd like ripples in a pond. Extended family members lean into each other, their voices hushed but urgent. Is that her? No, it can't be. But she looks she looks too successful, too refined. Maybe it's a cousin we don't know about. Uncle Richard? My father's brother stares at me with his mouth slightly open. Aunt Patricia clutches her pearls, literally clutches them as if I might snatch them off her neck. Cousins I haven't seen in a decade squint at me, trying to match this polished woman in designer clothes with the broken girl they watched get cast out. I let them stare. I've earned the right to be stared at. A waiter passes, and I hear him whisper to another, "That's the investor. The one funding the groom's tech company. She's worth billions, apparently." The irony tastes sweeter than the champagne. I watch my father whisper urgently to my mother, his face flushed red. She's shaking her head, bringing her napkin to her mouth. They're trapped at the head table, unable to flee, unable to make a scene at their daughter's wedding. Perfect. These people are strangers to me now, even though I know every line on their faces, every gesture, every tell. I know my mother twists her wedding ring when she's anxious. I know my father's jaw muscle twitches when he's angry. I know Jasmine blinks rapidly when she's trying not to cry. I know them, but they don't know me anymore. The woman I am now was forged in the fire they lit. Every tear I cried sleeping in my car, every door slammed in my face, every moment I wanted to give up. But didn't it all build something they never expected? Something they never could have imagined their failure daughter would become. Movement at the front of the room catches my attention. The groom Marcus, a handsome man in his early 30s with an easy smile and apparently no idea whose family he just married into, steps up to the microphone. He taps it twice, and the room gradually quiets. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here on this special day." He begins, his voice warm and genuine. My heart starts to pound. This is it. Before we cut the cake, I want to take a moment to thank someone very special who made all of this possible. My mother's face has gone from pale to gray. My father looks like he might be sick. Marcus's smile widens as his eyes find me in the crowd. Jasmine and I are so grateful for the investment that's going to launch our company to the next level. Please join me in welcoming the CEO who believed in our vision and our future. The room holds its breath. Ladies and gentlemen, Monica Johnson. The silence that follows is so complete, I can hear the ice melting in someone's drink 3 tables away. Champagne glasses hang suspended in midair, frozen in toasts that will never be completed. 200 faces turn toward me in perfect synchronization. Mouths, open eyes wide. The jazz quartet saxophonist hits a wrong note and then trails off into nothing. Even the waiters stop moving trays balanced on their palms like statues. I remain perfectly still, letting the revelation wash over them in waves. "That Monica," someone whispers, and the room explodes into a cacophony of hushed, urgent voices. The one it can't be, but she was. No one can finish their sentences. The gossip they've whispered for a decade, the schadenfreude they've enjoyed at my family's dinner tables, the casual cruelty of writing off the black sheep, it all collides with the woman standing before them in Valentino and diamonds. My father's face has drained of every drop of color. He looks like a man who's just watched his own execution warrant being signed. His hand grips the edge of the table so hard his knuckles have gone white. Beside him, Jasmine's bridal smile has frozen into something grotesque, a mask that no longer fits her face. Uncle Richard's champagne glass slips from his fingers and shatters on the marble floor. No one even looks. I let the moment stretch, savoring it like fine wine. 10 years I've waited for this. 10 years of clawing my way up from nothing, of proving every single one of them wrong, of becoming everything they said I never could be. And now here I am, and they can't even speak. The memory hits me like a physical blow, vivid and sharp, despite the decade that's passed. I'm 28 years old again, standing in my parents' living room with my entire family arranged around me like a tribunal. The same chandelier that now hangs over Jasmine's wedding reception cast shadows across my father's face that night, making him look like a stranger. "You're worthless." His voice echoed off the walls, spit flying from his lips. "You'll never amount to anything. You're an embarrassment to this family, to everything we've built." I tried to explain, tried to make them understand why I couldn't marry the man they'd chosen for me, why I needed to forge my own path, but my words fell on ears that had already decided my fate. My mother sat in the corner of the room, crying silently, her hands twisted in her lap. Not crying for me, crying for the embarrassment I was causing her, for the scandal that would follow, for the disappointment of having a daughter who refused to be molded into their perfect image. Jasmine watched from the stairs, her face carefully blank. She didn't say a word in my defense. Not one word. She just stood there already calculating how my exile would benefit her, how she could slide into the role of favored daughter, only daughter, the one who could be trusted to uphold the family name. "Get out," my father had said, his voice dropping to something cold and final. "Get out of this house and don't come back. You're not my daughter anymore." He'd thrown a suitcase at my feet, one suitcase for 28 years of life. I'd packed in silence while they watched my hands shaking so badly I could barely fold my clothes. When I reached the door, I'd turned back one last time, hoping, praying that someone would speak up, would tell him he was going too far, would remember that I was family. The door slammed behind me before I could finish the thought. Now standing in this glittering ballroom, I watch that same door open in reverse. My mother rises from the head table, her legs unsteady, one hand clutching her napkin like a lifeline. She moves toward me through the crowd that parts for her automatically, their eyes darting between us like spectators at a tennis match. Up close, I can see her mascara is slightly smudged. Her hands tremble as she reaches toward me, then stops uncertain. The diamonds at her throat catch the light, throwing tiny rainbows across her powder blue gown. Monica. My name comes out broken, barely a whisper. "What are you doing here? How did you—" Her voice cracks completely. She looks at me like she's seeing a ghost, or perhaps something worse, a reckoning she thought she'd escaped. I meet her eyes with a calm I've practiced in 1,000 mirrors, in 1,000 boardrooms where men twice my age tried to intimidate me and failed. My face reveals nothing. No anger, no pain, no triumph. Just a smooth, perfect composure that I know unnerves her more than any outburst could. She takes a step back. The woman who once knew every scratch on my knee, every bad dream, every secret fear, now stands before a stranger. She's searching my face desperately for some trace of the daughter she discarded, some weakness she can exploit, some crack in the armor. She won't find one. "Monica, please." Her voice drops to a desperate whisper, her eyes darting around to see who's watching. Always worried about appearances. "What have you done to us?" I turn toward her, slowly, deliberately. Let her wait. Let her wonder. Let her feel a fraction of the uncertainty I felt sleeping in my car, wondering if I'd survive the week. When I finally speak, my voice is soft as silk, and twice as dangerous. "What you made me become." My mother's face crumples, and suddenly I'm not standing in this glittering ballroom anymore. I'm back in that living room 10 years ago, watching my entire world collapse in the span of a single evening. They'd arranged it like a formal business meeting because that's what the Johnson family did best, turn human emotions into corporate proceedings. The dining table had been cleared of its usual centerpiece, replaced with nothing but hard surfaces and harder stares. Father sat at the head like a judge preparing to deliver a sentence. Uncle Richard to his right already nodding before a word was spoken. Aunt Patricia to his left examining her manicured nails as if the color of her polish mattered more than my future. Jasmine perched on the stairs beyond the doorway, close enough to watch, but far enough to claim she wasn't really part of it. "Monica, sit down." Father's voice carried that tone I'd learned to fear as a child, calm on the surface, violence underneath. I sat. My mother stood behind Father's chair, her hands gripping the back of it so tightly I could see her knuckles turn white even from across the room. "We've made a decision regarding your future." Father began pulling out a folder, as if this were a board meeting, and not a discussion about his daughter's life. "The Hartwell family has expressed interest in a union between their son Robert and you. It's an excellent match. Their company complements ours perfectly. The merger would position both families for tremendous growth." The merger, not the marriage. The merger. "I'm not interested in Robert Hartwell," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I barely know him, and what I do know I don't like. He's arrogant, and your interest is irrelevant." Father's words cut through mine like a blade. "This is about family legacy. This is about responsibility. This is about finally contributing something of value to this family instead of being a constant drain on our resources." Uncle Richard leaned forward, his jowls quivering with righteous indignation. "Your father has been more than generous with you, Monica. College tuition, that apartment downtown, the car. And what have you done with these opportunities? Nothing. You work at some nonprofit that barely pays you associating with people who are beneath your station." "Those people need help," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "They're families who've lost everything who are trying to rebuild their lives after—" "Exactly," Aunt Patricia interrupted, finally looking up from her nails. "People who've lost everything. Is that really the crowd you want to align yourself with? The Johnsons don't associate with losers, dear. They're not losers. They're human beings who deserve dignity and— enough." Father's fist came down on the table, rattling the water glasses. "This is precisely the problem. You've always been selfish, Monica, always putting your naive ideals above family duty. Well, no more. You will marry Robert Hartwell. The announcement will be made next month at the charity gala. This discussion is over." "No," the word came out stronger than I'd expected. "I won't do it. I won't marry someone I don't love just to increase your portfolio. I won't be sold off like a piece of property." The silence that followed was terrible. Father rose slowly from his chair, his face turning a deep, dangerous red. "You're selfish. You're ungrateful. You're a disappointment and an embarrassment to everything this family stands for." I looked to my mother, desperate for any sign of support, any indication that someone in this room saw me as more than a chess piece to be moved around their board. Her eyes were full of tears, but they weren't the angry tears I'd expected. They were something else, something that looked almost like grief. Her hands had dropped from the chair back and now hung at her sides, shaking, hidden in the folds of her skirt where no one else could see. Her lips moved, forming words I couldn't quite hear over the pounding of my heart. Was she saying, "I'm sorry"? Or was it, "I have to"? I leaned forward, straining to catch her meaning, but Father stepped into my line of sight. "Get out of my house," he said, his voice cold enough to freeze blood. "Pack your things. 1 suitcase. You have 30 minutes. Dad, please. You're no daughter of mine, not anymore." Uncle Richard nodded approvingly. Aunt Patricia had gone back to examining her nails. Jasmine remained on the stairs, her face carefully composed, already distancing herself from the sister who'd just become a liability. She didn't say a word, didn't argue, didn't even look sorry. She just watched, calculating how this would shift the family dynamics in her favor. I stumbled up the stairs past her, and she moved aside without speaking, as if I were already a ghost. 30 minutes to pack 28 years of life. I threw clothes into the suitcase without seeing them, my hands operating on autopilot while my mind tried to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. Families didn't do this. Parents didn't discard their children like broken furniture, but mine did. When I came back down, Father was holding the front door open, his face a mask of cold dismissal. Mother stood in the hallway, turned away, her shoulders shaking. As I moved past her, I felt her hand brush against my coat just for a second, but I was too numb to register what it meant. Father grabbed my arm roughly, propelling me toward the door. "Don't come back. Don't call. You're not part of this family anymore." The door slammed behind me with a finality that echoed through the quiet Atlanta neighborhood. I stood on the front steps for a long moment, suitcase in hand, unable to move. The porch light flickered off, plunging me into darkness. Inside, I could hear muffled voices, life continuing without me as if I'd never existed. It wasn't until I reached my car that I felt the weight in my coat pocket. I pulled it out, $200 in worn $20 bills folded small and tight. No note, no explanation, just cash that represented more than its monetary value. It was the only thing my mother could give me, smuggled into my pocket in that brief touch I'd barely noticed. Days later, sleeping in my car behind a grocery store because my apartment had been in Father's name and he'd already had the locks changed, I found the Bible tucked into the bottom of my suitcase. My mother's Bible, the one she'd had since her own mother died. Inside, pressed between the pages of Psalms, was a note in her careful handwriting, "Forgive me." 2 words that I didn't understand then. 2 words that seemed like a coward's apology, a meaningless gesture from a woman who'd stood silently while I was destroyed. Now, 10 years later, standing in this ballroom with my mother's desperate face before me, I finally understand what she was really saying that night. The whisper I couldn't quite hear, the trembling hands, the tears that weren't anger. She was saying, "Forgive me," even then under her breath where only God could hear. But understanding came much later, long after I'd hit bottom and clawed my way back up. 6 months after that night, forgiveness was the furthest thing from my mind. Survival was all that mattered. The Starlight Diner on Peachtree Street stayed open 24 hours, which made it perfect for someone like me. Someone who needed every shift she could get, someone who had nowhere else to be at 3 in the morning anyway. The uniform hung loose on my frame because it belonged to a waitress named Donna who'd quit 2 weeks earlier, and the manager never bothered ordering me one that fit. The name tag still said Donna too, but most customers didn't look closely enough to notice, and I'd stopped caring about things like my own name. I'd learned to move through the diner like a shadow, refilling coffee cups and clearing plates without making eye contact, without inviting conversation, without existing any more than absolutely necessary. The other waitresses, Sherry and Lakeisha, talked endlessly about their kids' soccer games and their husbands' annoying habits and their plans for Thanksgiving dinner. I wiped down tables and said nothing. They'd stopped asking me questions after the first week when my one-word answers made it clear I wasn't interested in bonding. Being invisible was safer. Being invisible meant no one asked where I lived, and I didn't have to explain that home was a 15-year-old Honda Civic parked behind the grocery store 3 blocks away. Being invisible meant no one noticed the dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide, or the way my hands shook sometimes from exhaustion, or the fact that I wore the same 3 outfits in rotation because they were all that fit in my suitcase. The tips barely covered gas and the occasional shower at the gym where I'd kept my membership because it was paid through the end of the year. Everything else went into a coffee can hidden under my spare tire. My escape fund, though I had no idea what I was escaping to. It was a Tuesday night or maybe Wednesday morning, sometime around 2 a.m., when the diner was nearly empty except for a few truckers and one woman sitting alone in the corner booth. She'd been there for over an hour, nursing the same cup of coffee while reading the Wall Street Journal by the fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead. But she didn't look half dead. She looked composed, elegant, even in a way that seemed out of place among the cracked vinyl seats and sticky laminate tables. She was a black woman in her 60s, her silver hair cut short and natural, wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than I made in a month. Her nails were manicured but practical, and she had the kind of posture that spoke of confidence earned, not performed. Every few minutes she'd glance up from her newspaper and watch the diner with the attention of someone who noticed everything, including me. A customer at the counter, a regular named Doug, who came in drunk most nights, started getting loud, snapping his fingers at me, and complaining that his eggs were too runny, then too dry, then the wrong temperature entirely. He wanted his money back. Then he wanted a free meal. Then he wanted to speak to a manager who'd gone home hours ago. I was so tired I could barely think straight, but I kept my voice steady and my face neutral. "I apologize for the inconvenience, sir. Let me get you a fresh plate on the house." I didn't have the authority to comp his meal, but I'd pay for it myself if I had to. Anything to make him stop yelling, to restore the quiet, to disappear back into my invisibility. Doug muttered something crude under his breath as I walked away, loud enough for me to hear, but quiet enough to pretend he thought I hadn't. I felt my face burn but kept moving, kept my shoulders straight, kept breathing. When I delivered his fresh eggs, which he suddenly decided he didn't want anymore, he left without tipping. Not that I'd expected him to. I was clearing his dishes when the woman in the corner booth spoke. "Excuse me, honey." Her voice was warm, cultured, with a slight southern lilt that spoke of Atlanta roots. "Could you bring me a fresh cup of coffee and maybe sit down for a minute? You look like you could use a break." I glanced toward the kitchen. Sherry was on her phone. Lakeisha was outside smoking. The cook was probably asleep, standing up. "I'm fine, ma'am. I'll get your coffee." "I'm sure you will, but I'm asking you to sit with me anyway." She folded her newspaper and looked at me directly. Really looked at me in a way no one had in months. "You handled that man with a grace he didn't deserve. You've got something most people don't. What's your story?" I should have made an excuse. Should have refilled her coffee and walked away. But something in her eyes stopped me. A recognition of pain, maybe, or just the simple fact that she was the first person in 6 months who'd asked me a direct question about myself and seemed to actually want an answer. I poured her coffee, poured myself a cup, and sat down. "There's not much to tell." I started, but she raised one elegant hand to stop me. "Don't do that. Don't minimize yourself. I've been watching you for an hour, and I've seen enough to know there's a story worth hearing. So let's try again. What's your name? Your real name, not the one on that borrowed name tag." "Monica," I said quietly. "Monica Johnson." "Evelyn Carter." She extended her hand across the table and her grip was firm, assured. "Now, Monica Johnson, tell me how someone with your bearing and intelligence ends up working the graveyard shift in a place like this." Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was just the relief of being seen after months of being invisible. But I told her. Not everything, not yet, but enough. About my family, about being disowned, about the car and the coffee can full of tips and the desperate hope that somewhere, somehow, things would get better. Evelyn listened without interrupting, her dark eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, her fingers wrapped around her coffee cup. "I built a tech company in the 90s, she finally said, her voice softer now. Back when people were still surprised to see a black woman in the boardroom, let alone running the whole show. Made my first $1 million before I turned 35. Built an empire worth over $200 million by the time I was 50. She paused, and I saw something crack in her composure just for a second, just enough to reveal the pain underneath. But I lost something worth more than all of it. My son. 20 years ago, in a custody battle that got uglier than anything I'd faced in business. His father had better lawyers, better connections, and a willingness to lie that I underestimated. The judge ruled against me, and just like that, he was gone. Moved out of state, changed his name. I looked for him for 15 years, hired investigators, followed every lead. Then one day I realized I had to stop. I had to accept that some losses don't get fixed. Her eyes welled up and she blinked rapidly, maintaining her composure with visible effort. "He'd be about your age now, 38, maybe 39. I wonder every day if he's happy, if he even remembers me, if he knows I never stopped loving him." I saw my own pain reflected in her face, the particular ache of being discarded by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. We sat in silence, two women carrying losses we couldn't name, couldn't fix, couldn't forget. Then something shifted in Evelyn's expression. The grief hardened into something else, something fierce and determined. She leaned across the table, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made me sit up straighter. "You've got fire behind all that hurt, baby. Let's build something from it." Evelyn Carter didn't believe in traditional mentorship. No corner offices with mahogany desks, no formal training programs, no PowerPoint presentations about synergy and paradigm shifts. Instead, she taught me about power in coffee shops at dawn, about negotiation while feeding pigeons in Piedmont Park, about self-worth while cooking Sunday dinner in her kitchen that smelled like rosemary and old money. "Business school teaches you formulas," she said one morning, stirring her espresso with the same precision she'd once used to dismantle competitor strategies. "But formulas don't account for the human element. They don't teach you how to read the micro-expressions on a CEO's face when he's bluffing. They don't show you how to use silence as a weapon or how to make someone think an idea was theirs when you planted it there all along." I quit the diner 2 weeks after we met. Evelyn hired me as her personal consultant, though we both knew it was charity dressed up as opportunity. She paid me more than I'd made in 6 months of slinging coffee, and suddenly I could afford a studio apartment in a neighborhood that didn't make me check over my shoulder at night. But she didn't just give me money. She gave me something more valuable. She gave me back my spine. "When they underestimate you, smile," she told me during one of our sessions in her sunlit living room surrounded by art that probably cost more than most people's houses. "Let them think you're soft, agreeable, not a threat. Then take everything. Take it with such precision and grace that they don't even realize they've been stripped bare until you're already gone." She taught me to weaponize every assumption people made about me. "Young woman, use it. Let them dismiss you while you study their weaknesses." Black woman in a white boardroom. Let their discomfort make them sloppy, reveal things they'd hide from someone they respected. Poor. Let them think you're desperate while you negotiate from a position they can't even see. The lessons weren't gentle. Evelyn had survived decades in rooms that didn't want her, and she'd learned to turn exclusion into advantage. Now she was teaching me the same alchemy. My first real test came 3 months into our arrangement. Evelyn had arranged a pitch meeting with a venture capital firm looking to invest in minority-owned businesses. We were proposing a consulting service focused on helping mid-sized companies streamline operations. My idea. Evelyn's connections, our combined credibility. The conference room was all glass and chrome designed to intimidate. 4 white men in expensive suits sat across from us, their body language screaming skepticism before we'd even opened our mouths. I was barely 2 sentences into my presentation when the youngest one interrupted. "Sorry, but could you clarify your credentials? What's your background in management consulting?" I opened my mouth to respond, but another voice cut in. "And your educational background? Did you attend business school?" Before I could answer that, a third man turned to Evelyn. "Ms. Carter, we have tremendous respect for your accomplishments. But is she really qualified for this kind of work? Perhaps someone with more traditional experience would be..." Under the table. Evelyn's hand found mine and squeezed, not comfort, a reminder. I straightened my spine, forcing myself to hold eye contact with each man in turn. My voice came out steady, calm, with an edge of steel I'd practiced in Evelyn's mirror. "Gentlemen, I understand your concerns about traditional qualifications, so let me address them with traditional metrics." I pulled up a slide showing the financial analysis I'd spent 2 weeks perfecting. Your portfolio company TechFlow is hemorrhaging money in 3 specific areas. Your operations costs are 42% above industry standard. Your employee turnover rate is costing you approximately $3.7 million annually in recruiting and training, and your supply chain inefficiencies are eating another $2 million in preventable waste. I watched their faces shift from dismissive to attentive. Now, my background includes 5 years in nonprofit management, where I learned to do more with less than you've ever imagined. I learned to negotiate with vendors who assumed I couldn't afford them, to manage teams who were overworked and underpaid, to find solutions that MBAs with fancy degrees told me were impossible. Those aren't traditional credentials. They're better. I advanced to the next slide, demolishing each of their objections with data so precise it left no room for argument. By the time I finished, the youngest one was taking notes. By the time Evelyn added her closing remarks, they were already discussing implementation timelines. We walked out with a signed contract and a retainer that made my hands shake when I saw the numbers. The real victory came 2 months later. A tech company CEO named Harrison Blake hired us to assess his operations and provide strategic recommendations. From the moment we walked into his office, he treated me like I was there to take notes for Evelyn, despite the introduction that clearly identified me as the lead consultant. "Sweetheart, could you grab us some coffee?" he asked, not even looking at me as he launched into an explanation of his business model directed entirely at Evelyn. Evelyn raised one eyebrow but said nothing. This was my test and she knew it. I smiled, fetched the coffee, and sat quietly while Harrison mansplained his own company to me for 30 minutes. He talked about market positioning like I'd never heard the term. He explained basic financial concepts as if I were a child. He interrupted me twice when I tried to ask clarifying questions, then answered questions I hadn't asked. I took meticulous notes, nodded at appropriate moments, and let him underestimate me with every word. Then I went to work. For 2 weeks, I analyzed every aspect of his business with a precision that bordered on obsessive. I interviewed his employees when he wasn't around, reviewed 5 years of financial statements, mapped his supply chains, and identified inefficiencies he didn't even know existed. I found the hemorrhaging a logistics contract that was overcharging him by 30%, a software licensing agreement that included services. He never used a middle management layer that existed purely to justify someone's nephew's salary. When I presented my findings, Harrison tried to interrupt within the first minute. I simply raised my hand and kept talking, my voice never rising, my data irrefutable. By the end of the presentation, I'd outlined a strategy that would save his company $4 million in the first year alone and position them for acquisition by a larger firm within 18 months. He stared at the projection screen, then at me, his expression shifting from condescension to grudging respect to something that looked like greed. "This is brilliant," he said slowly. "I'll need to present this to my board, of course. We'll implement it under my leadership and you'll implement it under the terms of our contract." I interrupted, smoothly sliding a document across his desk, which specifies that all strategies remain intellectual property of Carter Consulting, that implementation requires our oversight at the agreed-upon rate, and that any public presentation of these findings must credit our firm. "You signed this 2 weeks ago, Mr. Blake. Page 7, paragraph 3. His face flushed red, but he'd already signed. The contract was ironclad because Evelyn had taught me to always get it in writing, always protect my work, always assume that people who underestimate you will also try to steal from you. 3 weeks later, I was doing routine research on potential clients when I decided to dig deeper into Harrison Blake's company structure. His tech firm was a subsidiary, I discovered, of a larger holdings company, and that holdings company had recently undergone restructuring and rebranding after some financial difficulties. I clicked through corporate filings following the paper trail with growing unease. Parent company leads to holding company leads to investment group leads to. My hand froze on the mouse. The original ownership documents buried in archived SEC filings showed a name I knew by heart: Johnson Family Enterprises. My father's company hidden under layers of corporate restructuring and a shiny new name. I stared at that name on my computer screen until the letters blurred. Johnson Family Enterprises. My father's legacy. The empire he'd valued more than his own daughter. The business he'd tried to force me into an arranged marriage to protect. And now I'd just saved a piece of it without even knowing. The irony should have been funny. Instead, it felt like swallowing glass. I dug deeper, spending the next week tracing every thread of my father's business dealings. What I found was a portrait of incompetence masked by arrogance. The thriving company I remembered from my childhood had been gutted by a series of catastrophically bad decisions. Overexpansion into markets he didn't understand. Contracts signed without proper due diligence. Partnerships with people who'd quietly robbed him blind while he was too proud to admit he needed help. The man who'd called me worthless had driven his precious empire to the edge of bankruptcy through his own worthlessness. 3 months after I discovered the connection, my assistant Jennifer knocked on my office door with an unusual urgency. "Monica, we have a new inquiry. It's big. Emergency funding request, very time-sensitive." She handed me the file, and my breath caught when I saw the letterhead. Johnson Family Enterprises, not the subsidiary I'd worked with before, but the parent company itself. My father's lawyers were reaching out to Carter Consulting, begging for capital infusion to avoid defaulting on several major loans. They had no idea who they were begging. I kept my face neutral as I read through their desperate proposal. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. My father was drowning, and he was too proud to admit it to anyone who knew his name. So he'd reached out to a firm he'd never heard of, run by someone whose name meant nothing to him. "Tell them we're interested," I said quietly, "but I want to structure this as an equity deal, not a loan. I'll need complete financial disclosure and board representation." Jennifer's eyebrows rose. "That's going to be expensive for them. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Over the next 6 weeks, I built a cage from paper and ink. I created a web of shell companies and investment trusts, each one legally distinct but ultimately controlled by me. The lawyers my father hired never thought to trace the ownership structure back to its source. They were too desperate, too focused on getting the cash injection before the whole house of cards collapsed. I structured every contract with the precision Evelyn had taught me, every clause designed to look reasonable on the surface while hiding steel beneath. I attended meetings via video conference with my camera off, my voice disguised through a modifier that made me sound older male, vaguely European. I watched my father sit in those meetings, his face haggard, his suit not quite as crisp as it used to be, his hands shaking slightly as he signed document after document. Did he know what he was signing away? Did he understand that with each signature he was handing control of his life's work to someone else? Or was he too blinded by pride to see the trap closing around him? By the end, I owned 51% of Johnson Family Enterprises. The proud patriarch who'd thrown me out for refusing to be sold now worked for me. He just didn't know it yet. The satisfaction was darker than I'd expected, less triumphant, and more like a wound that wouldn't quite heal. I'd wanted justice, wanted him to feel what I'd felt. But sitting in my office, looking at the ownership documents with my name hidden behind layers of corporate structure, I felt something closer to emptiness. Still, I couldn't stop myself from exercising the power I now held. I attended board meetings as a silent proxy, never revealing my identity, but making my influence felt in every decision. When my father proposed firing a senior analyst who'd given him honest feedback he didn't want to hear, I blocked the motion through my representatives. When he wanted to cut employee benefits to pad his own bonus, I ensured the vote went the other way. When he made a pitch to invest in a venture that would have been disastrous, I quietly killed it before it could proceed. I became the invisible hand that controlled everything he thought was his. Every time he raged about the mysterious investor who kept interfering with his decisions, every time he complained about losing autonomy in his own company, I felt that dark satisfaction bloom a little brighter. He'd wanted me to be nothing. Instead, I'd become the puppet master of his entire existence. Evelyn knew, of course. She'd helped me structure some of the deals, though. She'd warned me to be careful. "Revenge has a way of consuming the person seeking it," she'd said over dinner one night. "Make sure you're building something for yourself, not just tearing him down." But I was building something. Carter Consulting had grown beyond my wildest expectations. We had clients across 3 states, a staff of 15, and a reputation for turning around failing companies that others had written off. I'd proven that I was everything my father said I'd never be. I just needed him to know it. Needed him to see my face and understand exactly who was holding his fate in her hands. The opportunity came on a Tuesday morning 6 months after I'd taken control of his company. Jennifer knocked on my door again, this time holding a cream-colored envelope with elegant calligraphy. "This just arrived by courier," she said, handing it to me. "It's marked personal and urgent." I opened it, my hands steady, despite the sudden acceleration of my heartbeat. Inside was a wedding invitation, Jasmine's wedding scheduled for 3 months from now at the Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta. But there was something else, a separate note on heavy cardstock. Ms. Johnson, it read in a masculine scrawl, my fiancé's family has spoken highly of the Johnson name, though we've never met. As you're the primary investor in my technology company, I would be honored if you would attend our wedding. I believe it would be valuable for us to meet in person and discuss the future of our partnership. With sincere respect, Marcus Chen. My sister's husband-to-be wanted to meet his mysterious investor. He wanted to introduce me to the family at their wedding in front of everyone who'd watched me be discarded. He had no idea that the investor he was courting and the disowned sister were the same person. Jennifer was watching me carefully. Everything okay? I looked up at her, and for the first time in months, I felt something like genuine joy spreading across my face. Jennifer, please RSVP that I'll be attending, and book me the best suite at the Ritz-Carlton. I have a wedding to crash. She blinked, confused. But you were invited. How is it crashing? I smiled, already imagining my father's face when he realized the truth. Trust me. It's going to feel like crashing. The seating chart appears 30 minutes after Marcus's announcement, delivered by a flustered wedding coordinator who can't quite meet my eyes. Table 47. I scan the elegantly printed diagram and find it tucked in the far corner of the ballroom, partially hidden behind a decorative column, as far from the head table as physically possible, while still technically being in the same room. The placard reads, "Distant relatives and guests." I'm seated between someone named Philip, who turns out to be the second cousin of Jasmine's college roommate, and a woman named Teresa, who's the +1 of someone's +1, and seems equally confused about why she's here. Across from me sits an elderly man who introduces himself as a third cousin twice removed and promptly falls asleep in his chair. The message couldn't be clearer if they'd written it in skywriting. You're not one of us. You never were. Money doesn't change that. I smooth my Valentino dress and smile, genuinely amused. They think a table assignment can diminish me. They think physical distance equals social hierarchy. They don't understand that I stopped needing their approval the night I learned to survive without them. Success isn't just the best revenge, it's the only revenge that matters. From my exile in the corner, I have a perfect view of the entire reception. I watch the Johnson family perform their elaborate theater of respectability and wealth. The champagne flows, the orchestra plays. Everyone smiles with too many teeth, but the whispers are louder than the music. Aunt Patricia leans close to Uncle Richard, her voice carrying just far enough for me to catch fragments. Sleeping her way to the top, probably. You know how those types operate. A woman doesn't build that kind of wealth without lying on her back. Uncle Richard nods, his jowls quivering with righteous judgment. Always knew she'd end up using what God gave her instead of working honest. I take a sip of champagne and watch them, feeling nothing. Their poison can't touch me anymore. I'm inoculated by success, immunized by self-worth, protected by the simple fact that I know my truth and they only know their assumptions. My cousins huddle around a phone at table 12, not even bothering to hide what they're doing. One of them angles the camera in my direction, zooming in on my dress, my jewelry, my hair. They're probably posting to some group chat right now, dissecting every choice I made, finding flaws that don't exist, creating narratives that make them feel superior to the woman who surpassed them all. Let them. Their criticism is the price of admission to their small, bitter world, and I'm no longer buying tickets. My father sits at the head table like a king on a crumbling throne. He hasn't looked in my direction once since Marcus's announcement. His jaw is clenched so tight I can see the muscle jumping from here. His hand grips his whiskey glass with enough force to crack it. He's performing stoicism, but I can read the rage beneath it, the humiliation of discovering that his failure daughter now controls his fate. Jasmine holds court at the center of attention, surrounded by her bridesmaids in their pale pink dresses. She laughs too loud at jokes that aren't funny, tosses her hair too often, touches her new husband's arm with practiced affection. Everything about her movement screams performance. Look how happy I am. Look how perfect my life is. Look how much better I'm doing than that sister we don't talk about. But I notice something else now, something I've never quite registered before, because I was too close, too caught up in our family dynamics to see clearly. I study Jasmine across the crowded room, really study her with the analytical eye I've developed in boardrooms and negotiations. She doesn't look like anyone. Not mother with her delicate features and expressive eyes. Not father with his strong jaw and prominent nose. Jasmine's face is rounder, softer, her eyes a different shape entirely. Her build is stockier where both our parents are lean. Even her mannerisms, the way she gestures when she talks, the tilt of her head when she laughs, belong to someone else's genetic memory. I've never noticed because I've never had reason to look. She was just Jasmine, the golden child, the favorite, the one who stayed when I was cast out. But now, with distance and clarity, I see what I've been missing all along. A memory surfaces sharp and sudden. I was maybe 7 or 8, sitting on the stairs listening to Mother talk to Aunt Patricia in the kitchen. "Jasmine is our miracle," Mother had said, her voice full of an emotion I couldn't name then. "We never thought we'd have another chance." Odd phrasing, not another child, another chance. Another memory, Father once telling someone at a dinner party that Jasmine came to us when we needed her most, while Mother gripped her wine glass and changed the subject quickly. Another, Jasmine's baby photos appearing suddenly when she was already 2 years old. No newborn pictures anywhere in the house despite Mother's obsession with documenting everything. I shake my head, dismissing the thoughts. It doesn't matter. Whatever secrets this family keeps, they're not my concern anymore. I'm here for one reason only, to show them exactly what they threw away to make them choke on their own judgment. Mother keeps glancing in my direction, her anxiety written in every line of her posture. She barely touches her food. Her champagne sits untouched. Every few minutes her eyes find me across the room, and I see something in them that looks like fear mixed with desperate hope. Fear of what I might do, perhaps. Hope for what? Forgiveness, reconciliation. I don't know, and I'm not sure I care enough to find out. The evening wears on. Dinner is served, some overpriced chicken that tastes like expensive cardboard. Toasts are made, carefully avoiding any mention of family beyond the happy couple. The cake is cut with ceremonial precision. Through it all, I remain in my corner, an inconvenient reminder of everything they'd rather forget. Then I see him moving through the crowd. Marcus, the groom, weaving between tables with deliberate purpose. He's heading toward me, his expression strange, not quite a smile, but something knowing something that makes my instincts suddenly sharp and alert. He stops at my table, and Philip, the second cousin once removed, practically falls over himself to vacate the chair. Marcus sits down where Philip had been, close enough that I can see the details of his face. There's something familiar about him, something that tickles at the edge of my memory but won't quite surface. His smile deepens, and his eyes, dark and assessing, meet mine with an intensity that feels personal. "You remember me, don't you?" The recognition hits me like cold water. Marcus. But 12 years ago he went by a different name. Darius Chen. The memories flood back with uncomfortable clarity. I was 26, still working at my father's company before everything fell apart. Darius had been brought in as an external consultant on some project I can't even remember now, something about market expansion or operational efficiency. He was charming in that effortless way some men have, the kind that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room even when you're standing in a crowd. We dated quietly for 3 months. Coffee that turned into dinner, that turned into late-night conversations in his car because I couldn't bring him home. Father had opinions about who was and wasn't suitable for a Johnson daughter. Darius said he understood. He said he didn't need my family's approval to know what I was worth. Then came the night of my exile. The tribunal. The suitcase. The door slamming behind me. I'd tried calling Darius the next day, my phone clutched in shaking hands while I sat in my car behind a grocery store. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again that evening. The next day. The day after that. By the end of the week, his number was disconnected. His email bounced back. It was like he'd never existed. I'd told myself he was embarrassed by my fall from grace, that he couldn't be associated with the disowned Johnson daughter, that he'd simply cut his losses and moved on. It had hurt, but it was just one more betrayal in a season of betrayals, one more person who proved that no one actually stays when things get hard. And now here he sits at my sister's wedding looking at me with that same charming smile that once made me feel special. "Darius," I say, keeping my voice level. "Or is it Marcus now?" Marcus is my middle name. Darius Marcus Chen. I go by Marcus professionally now, cleaner, less ethnic for the tech world. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "You look different. Success suits you." "What are you doing here?" The question comes out sharper than I intend. "How did you end up with Jasmine?" He leans back in his chair completely at ease, as if we're old friends catching up instead of former lovers meeting under impossibly strange circumstances. Fate, coincidence, or maybe something more deliberate. He pauses, watching my face. "The invitation wasn't an accident, Monica. I requested your firm specifically for the investment." My spine stiffens. "You knew who I was." "I've followed your career. Very closely, actually. The meteoric rise of Monica Johnson from nowhere to billionaire CEO in less than a decade. It's impressive what you've built, especially considering where you started." His eyes flicker with something I can't quite read. "When I found out you'd taken control of your father's company, I knew you'd be interested in other opportunities within the Johnson orbit. You manipulated this entire situation." My voice is cold now, clinical. "You pursued my sister to get to me." "I pursued your sister because she was available, ambitious, and connected to a family I needed access to." He says it so casually, like he's discussing a business transaction. "The fact that it brought you back into the picture was simply a convenient bonus, although I'll admit I was curious to see if you'd actually show up." I study his face, looking for the man I once thought I knew. He's handsomer than I remember, more polished. The boyish charm has been replaced with something smoother, more calculated. Whatever genuine affection might have existed between us 12 years ago has been replaced by something else entirely. "Does Jasmine know?" I ask. "Does she know we have a history? Why would I tell her ancient history doesn't help anyone?" He waves his hand dismissively, and that's when I notice a ring on his right hand that I don't remember from our time together. It's silver, unusual in design, with an intricate pattern that looks almost Celtic or possibly older. The craftsmanship suggests age, real age, like something passed down through generations. "That's an interesting ring," I say, reaching for any detail that might tell me who this man really is. "I don't remember you wearing it before." His hand closes reflexively, covering the ring with his other palm. The movement is instinctive, protective. "Family thing. Not important." He changes the subject so smoothly that most people wouldn't notice the deflection. "We should talk about why I really wanted you here." "I assumed it was to gloat, to show me that you ended up with the favored daughter after all." "Gloat." He laughs, but it sounds hollow. "Monica, I don't need to gloat. I need an ally, someone who understands what this family really is." The air between us shifts, becoming charged with something darker. I can feel the weight of other guests' stares on us, the disgraced daughter, and the groom having an intense conversation in the corner. Mother keeps glancing over her anxiety, now bordering on panic. Father's jaw is clenched so tight I'm surprised his teeth haven't cracked. "What are you talking about?" I ask, even though part of me already knows I shouldn't engage, shouldn't let him draw me deeper into whatever game he's playing. Darius leans forward, his voice dropping to just above a whisper, intimate and conspiratorial. "This family has secrets, Monica. Dark ones. The kind that destroy lives when they come to light. You've already started unraveling things with your corporate takeover. But that's just money. That's just business." He pauses, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that makes my skin prickle. "You could destroy them all you know. This whole family. Everything they've built, every lie they've told, every person they've hurt. You could burn it all down." I should stand up. should walk away, should refuse to be drawn into whatever twisted scheme he's concocting. But I don't move. And I can help you do it. He continues, his smile sharpening into something that looks almost predatory. In fact, I think you'll find we want the same thing. The same thing. The words hang in the air between us like smoke, and I realize with uncomfortable clarity that Darius has been planning this conversation for a long time. This isn't spontaneous. This is rehearsed. You've done your homework, I say, carefully keeping my expression neutral even as my mind races through implications. How much does he actually know more than homework? He pulls out his phone, angles it so only I can see the screen. On it are documents I recognize immediately. Corporate filings, ownership structures, the labyrinth of shell companies I'd created to hide my acquisition of Father's business. Evermore Holdings registered in Delaware. Cascade Investment Trust registered in Nevada. Sterling Capital Partners registered in the Cayman Islands. All of them ultimately controlled by one Monica Elizabeth Johnson. My blood runs cold, but I don't let it show on my face. Corporate espionage is illegal. So is structuring deals to deliberately deceive stakeholders about ownership. He says it without malice, just stating facts. But I'm not here to threaten you, Monica. I'm here because I know what they did to you. I know how your father threw you out like garbage. I know how your mother stood by and watched. I know how your sister benefited from your exile and never once reached out to see if you were alive or dead. Each word is a needle finding its mark. He's telling me things I know, things I've lived, but hearing them spoken aloud by someone else gives them new weight, validates the rage I've been carrying for a decade. I have my sources, he continues when I don't respond. People who know people. Money talks, and I've learned to listen. But more importantly, I understand. I know what it's like to be cast aside by people who were supposed to protect you. There's something raw in his voice when he says this, something that sounds almost genuine. Almost. So you want justice for me? I say, letting skepticism color my tone. How altruistic. I want justice for both of us. He leans closer and I catch the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something else, ambition maybe, or desperation dressed up as confidence. Use this wedding as a stage. All these people are here, all these family friends and business associates and social climbers who worshipped at the altar of Johnson family respectability. You stand up during the reception, tell them what they did. Show them the documents proving you now control everything your father built. Expose the lie of their perfect family. He paints the picture with the skill of someone who's rehearsed this pitch, maybe even practiced it in front of a mirror. Imagine it. Your father's face when everyone knows he works for his failure daughter. Your mother's shame when her friends understand she let her husband abuse her and discard her child. Jasmine's humiliation when her wedding becomes about your resurrection instead of her celebration. You could destroy them publicly, Monica. Make them feel what you felt. Part of me responds to his words like a match to kindling. That dark part that's nursed the wound for 10 years, that's calculated every move with their eventual reckoning in mind, that wants to watch them burn the way I burned. The part that kept me going through nights in my car and double shifts at the diner, and every moment someone treated me like I was less than human. That part whispers, yes, do it make them pay. But another voice cuts through the fantasy, Evelyn's voice, warm and wise and hard-earned. We'd been sitting in her kitchen 6 months ago reviewing quarterly reports when she'd suddenly looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Don't become the man you fought, she'd said. Don't let his cruelty turn you cruel. Don't let his smallness make you small. You're building something beautiful, baby. Don't poison it with his venom. I'd asked her what she meant, but she'd just shaken her head and changed the subject. Now I understand. She saw this moment coming before I did. She knew I'd be offered the chance to destroy them, and she was warning me about the cost. I study Darius across the table. His expression is earnest, compelling, designed to draw me in. But something feels wrong, like a note played just slightly off-key in an otherwise perfect melody. This man who vanished when I needed him most, who's now married to my sister, who somehow knows details about my business dealings that should be buried under layers of legal protection, this man wants me to trust him. Why do you care so much? I ask, watching his face carefully for micro-expressions, the tells I've learned to read in negotiations. What's in this for you, Darius? What do you get out of my revenge? Something flickers behind his eyes, too quick to catch, too fast to identify. Let's just say I have my own reasons for wanting to see this family brought low. Reasons that align with yours. That's not an answer? It's the only answer you're getting right now. He leans back, his smile returning but not quite reaching his eyes. You want to know my motives? Fine. But first you need to decide if you're interested in the opportunity. Are you brave enough to take what's rightfully yours, not just their money, but their dignity, their reputation, their comfortable lies? The ballroom swirls around us. Music plays. People dance. Jasmine throws her head back in exaggerated laughter at something a bridesmaid said. Father grips his whiskey and stares at nothing. Mother's eyes find mine again, pleading for something I can't name. I could do it. I could stand up right now, take the microphone, lay bare every ugly truth. Watch this perfect wedding implode in real time. Become the villain they always said I was, except now with the power to actually destroy them. Or I could walk away, keep my dignity, keep building the life I've created. Let their guilt and fear eat at them slowly instead of burning them quickly. Revenge or peace. Destruction or elevation. The woman I was or the woman I'm becoming. I make my decision, though I'm not entirely sure which path I'm choosing. Maybe I need to know more before I commit. Maybe I need to see how far Darius is willing to go, what his real endgame looks like. Maybe I'm just buying time to figure out what I actually want. I lean forward, mirroring his posture, and let a small smile play at my lips. Tell me more about this plan of yours, Darius. Darius's smile widens as I lean in, and he's about to respond when the MC's voice crackles through the sound system, cutting through the ambient chatter and clinking glasses. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful surprise for you this evening. We're going to hear from someone very special, a woman who's accomplished extraordinary things and who shares a unique bond with our beautiful bride. Please join me in welcoming to the stage the bride's sister, Monica Johnson, for a toast. The room erupts in polite applause. My body goes rigid. Jasmine's face drains of all color. She wasn't consulted about this. Her hand shoots out to grip Darius's arm, but he's already standing, already applauding with everyone else. His expression a perfect mask of supportive enthusiasm. When she turns to look at him, confusion and panic warring on her face, he just smiles and nods encouragingly. He orchestrated this. He set me up. All eyes turn toward my corner table. The spotlight, literal actual spotlight, swings to find me. I'm trapped in a circle of light, while 200 faces wait expectantly for me to either accept or refuse this poisoned gift. I could stay seated, could shake my head politely and decline, could let this moment pass and maintain the careful distance I've kept all evening. That would be the safe choice, the dignified choice. But I think about Darius's words, his offer to help me destroy them. I think about 10 years of silence, 10 years of letting them rewrite history without my voice in it. I think about every person in this room who watched me be erased and said nothing. And I think about Evelyn's warning, don't become the man you fought. I stand. The Valentino dress catches the light perfectly as I make my way through the tables toward the small stage where the MC waits with a microphone. My heels click against marble with a rhythm that sounds like a countdown. People lean back to let me pass their whispers, creating a wave of sound that follows me. Father's knuckles are white around his whiskey glass. Mother has brought her napkin to her mouth as if physically holding back words. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Richard exchange horrified glances. The cousins have their phones out, ready to record whatever catastrophe is about to unfold. I take the microphone from the MC's hand. The weight of it feels significant, like holding a weapon I haven't decided whether to use. Thank you, I say, my voice steady and clear through the speakers. This is unexpected, but then again, my entire presence here tonight has been unexpected for many of you. A ripple of nervous laughter moves through the crowd. The younger guests, friends of Jasmine and Darius who don't know the family history, smile, politely assuming this is just standard sister of the bride humor. I want to talk about family tonight. I continue, letting my gaze sweep across the room, making eye contact with faces I once knew intimately. Because that's what weddings are supposed to celebrate, aren't they? The joining of families, the strength of bonds, the loyalty that ties us together through joy and hardship alike. Father's jaw muscle twitches. He knows where this is going, or thinks he does. But families are complicated. I say, my voice taking on a reflective quality that sounds almost gentle. Some families embrace all their children equally, and some families have favorites. Some families stand by their members when times get hard, and some families decide that certain members are expendable when they become inconvenient. The room has gone very quiet now. Even the waiters have stopped moving. I speak from experience, you see, because I am the daughter who was found to be inconvenient, the sister who was discarded when she didn't fit the family narrative. 10 years ago, I was cast out of this family for the crime of wanting to choose my own path. I was told I was worthless, that I would amount to nothing, that I was an embarrassment to the Johnson name. I can hear people shifting in their seats. Some uncomfortable, some curious, some shocked that I'm saying this out loud at a wedding reception. Some of us were cast out to fall. I continue raising my champagne glass, but we learned to fly instead. And now we're soaring higher than those who tried to clip our wings. We learned that family isn't just about blood and last names. Family is about the people who believe in you when you're at your lowest, the people who invest in your potential when everyone else writes you off, the people who teach you that your worth isn't determined by those who abandoned you. Evelyn's face flashes in my mind, her kindness in that diner, her fierce protection, her unconditional belief in me when I didn't believe in myself. So here's to resilience, I say, my voice growing stronger. Here's to the people who survive their own families. Here's to those who build empires from nothing, while others inherit empires and run them into the ground. Here's to knowing that success isn't about where you start, it's about refusing to stay down when people try to bury you. Some people are applauding now, mostly the younger crowd who hear only an empowerment message, who think this is just contemporary wedding toast boldness. They don't understand the surgical precision of every word, the way each sentence is aimed at specific targets, sitting frozen at their tables. But the older guests understand. They've gone still as statues. Uncle Richard's face has turned an alarming shade of red. Aunt Patricia looks like she might faint. Extended family members who participated in my exile, who nodded along when Father declared me worthless, now stare at their plates as if they might find escape routes written in the remnants of their expensive chicken. Father has stood up from his chair, his body rigid with barely contained fury. Mother is crying silently, tears streaming down her face, though I can't tell if they're tears of shame or something else. And Darius watches from the head table with an expression of satisfaction that makes my skin crawl. This is exactly what he wanted. He's feeding off the chaos like it nourishes him. To the bride and groom, I say, raising my glass higher, my final words delivered with a smile that doesn't quite reach my eyes. May your marriage be built on honesty, loyalty, and the understanding that the people you choose to keep in your life define who you are, far more than the people you choose to discard. May you never know what it's like to be thrown away by those who claimed to love you, and may you never be the ones doing the throwing. I drain my champagne glass in one long swallow, the bubbles sharp against my throat. The applause is scattered, confused. Some people clap enthusiastically, still not understanding the subtext. Others sit in stunned silence. A few guests look actively uncomfortable, as if they've just witnessed something they wish they hadn't. I hand the microphone back to the MC, whose professional smile has become fixed and slightly panicked, and turn to walk back to my table. I make it 3 steps before Jasmine's voice cuts through the room like breaking glass. Stop! I turn. She's standing at the head table, both hands pressed flat against the white tablecloth. Her face flushed with emotion I can't quite parse. Rage, yes, but also fear. And something that might be betrayal, though I'm not sure who she thinks betrayed her. Her voice shakes when she speaks again, loud enough for everyone to hear even without the microphone. How dare you? How dare you come to my wedding and make it about you? About your victim story, your persecution complex, your need to be the center of attention even when it's not your day. The room has gone completely silent now. Even the orchestra has stopped playing. You were always selfish, Jasmine continues, her voice rising. Always thinking everything was about you. Mom and Dad made a decision based on what was best for this family, and you couldn't handle it. So you ran away, and now you come back here with your money and your fancy dress and your little speech trying to ruin my perfect day. She's trembling visibly now, her perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled, her makeup starting to run. Get out of my wedding, she says, her voice cracking on the last word. Now. The silence following Jasmine's command stretches for exactly 3 seconds before she breaks it herself, her voice climbing to a pitch I've never heard from her before. You're jealous, she screams, pointing at me with a shaking finger, her perfectly manicured nail like an accusation. You've always been jealous of me, jealous that I was loved, that I belonged, that I didn't throw everything away for some stupid principle. I remain perfectly still, my voice calm when I respond. I'm not jealous of a life built on lies, little sister. I'm not jealous of being the daughter who stayed because she was too afraid to become anything else. Jasmine's face contorts with rage. She takes a step toward me, and immediately, 3 bridesmaids rush to her side, trying to hold her back, their pink dresses creating a barrier between us. But she shrugs them off, advancing on me with 10 years of resentment pouring out. You think you're better than us because you made some money. You think success erases what you are. You're still the failure who got thrown out. You're still the embarrassment. Money doesn't change that. Around us. I can see phones emerging from pockets and purses' screens glowing as guests begin recording. This is going to be all over social media within the hour. The perfect Johnson wedding imploding in real time. Part of me should feel guilty about that, but I don't. I didn't throw the first punch, I just refused to stay down. Jasmine, stop! Mother's voice cuts through weak and pleading, but neither of us listens. You want to talk about embarrassment? I ask, my voice still level even as Jasmine's rises. Let's talk about a family so obsessed with appearances that they threw away their own daughter rather than face the scandal of her making her own choices. Let's talk about parents who valued their reputation more than their child. That's when Father moves. He's been standing at the head table frozen until now, but something in my words snaps whatever restraint he was maintaining. He storms toward me, his face transforming from pale fury to something darker, something dangerous. How dare you! His voice booms across the ballroom, drowning out the music that started playing again in a futile attempt to restore normalcy. How dare you come here? You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. Every eye in the room is on us now. The performance of respectability has shattered completely. The careful Johnson family image is cracking in real time, and there's nowhere to hide. Father's face has gone an alarming shade of red, almost purple. Veins bulge in his neck and forehead. His finger jabs toward the exit with such violence, I almost expect his arm to detach. You were a mistake, and throwing you out was the best decision I ever made. The only good thing you ever did for this family was leave it. Something in his words triggers a visceral memory, being 28 again, hearing almost identical phrases, feeling the world collapse. But I'm not that person anymore. That person begged for mercy. This version of me just stands taller. If it was such a good decision, I say quietly, why do you look like it's eating you alive? His eyes bulge. His mouth opens to respond, but what comes out isn't words, it's a gasp, sharp and sudden. His right hand flies to his chest, clutching at his shirt. His left hand reaches out, grasping at air, at nothing, at something only he can see. The room shifts from tension to panic in an instant. Father's face drains of color just as quickly as it had filled with rage. He stumbles backward, his legs suddenly unable to support his weight. Mother screams his name. Jasmine's fury transforms into horror. "Someone call 911!" a voice shouts. I think it's Uncle Richard. Father falls to his knees, and even in this moment, even as his body betrays him, his eyes find mine. There's no softness in them, no fear for himself, just pure, undiluted hatred. His lips form words I can barely hear over the chaos erupting around us. "This is your fault." Then he crumples, completely collapsing onto the marble floor that moments ago reflected the sparkle of a perfect wedding. Guests surge forward and pull back simultaneously, creating a chaotic circle around his prone body. Mother drops beside him, her gown pooling around them both, her hands fluttering uselessly over his chest, as if she could will his heart to keep beating through sheer desperation. Bridesmaids cry. Groomsmen pull out phones. Someone with medical training, a guest I don't recognize, pushes through the crowd and begins administering aid. The orchestra has stopped completely now. The only sounds are Mother's sobs, the urgent voice of whoever's on the phone with emergency services, and the whispered prayers of guests who don't know what else to do. I stand frozen, watching it all unfold like a nightmare I can't wake from. Part of me wants to run to him, to take back my words, to somehow undo this moment. But a larger part knows that his hatred wasn't born tonight. It's been festering for a decade, maybe longer. I'm not the cause of his rage. I'm just the mirror that reflected it back at him, until he couldn't stand to see his own ugliness anymore. The paramedics arrive with shocking speed, flooding the ballroom with uniforms and equipment. They work on Father with efficient urgency, asking questions, checking vitals, loading him onto a stretcher. Mother climbs into the ambulance with him, still crying, her makeup completely destroyed. Jasmine follows in a car with Darius, her wedding gown, trailing behind her like a ghost. The ballroom empties slowly, guests filing out in shocked silence, their evening of celebration transformed into trauma they'll recount to friends for years. I remain standing exactly where Father collapsed, unable to move, unable to process what just happened. His words echo in my head. "This is your fault. Maybe he's right. Maybe coming here was a mistake. Maybe I should have stayed away, stayed invisible, stayed discarded." I'm still standing there when my phone vibrates in my clutch. I pull it out with numb fingers, expecting it to be Evelyn or Jennifer checking on me after seeing the inevitable videos already circulating online. But the number is unknown. The message makes my blood run cold. "Be careful. Your father isn't the only one who wants you gone." I stare at the text message until the screen dims, then lights up again when another message arrives. Same unknown number. Ask yourself why Jasmine looks nothing like your parents. My hotel room suddenly feels too small, too exposed. I check the locks, close the curtains, and sink onto the bed with my phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. The thread is clear, but the motive remains murky. Who sent this Darius someone else in the family? A stranger with access to information they shouldn't have. Father survives the heart attack. I learn this not from family, but from the news. Prominent Atlanta businessman hospitalized after daughter's wedding outburst, reads one headline. Family drama turns deadly at society wedding, reads another. They've already shaped the narrative, and I'm the villain. Jasmine gives a tearful interview to a local news station, standing outside the hospital in her ruined wedding dress like a tragic heroine. "My sister stressed him into a heart attack," she says, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "She showed up uninvited, gave a cruel speech, and attacked our family publicly. This is who she is. Someone who destroys people for attention." The comments section fills with strangers who've never met me, all of them certain of my guilt. Jealous sister ruins wedding. Some people can't stand to see others happy. She should be ashamed. My social media accounts, which I rarely use, flood with hate messages within hours. People I've never heard of feel entitled to tell me I'm worthless, cruel, that I deserved to be disowned. Aunt Patricia posts on Facebook about toxic family members who weaponize past grievances. Uncle Richard shares an article about narcissistic personality disorder with the caption, "Some people never change." Cousins I haven't seen in a decade suddenly have strong opinions about my character shared publicly for maximum impact. But beneath the performative outrage, I sense something else: desperation. They're trying too hard to control the story, too eager to paint me as the sole villain. Which means there's more to this story, more they're hiding, more they're afraid I'll uncover. So I start digging. My ownership of Father's company gives me access to files he doesn't know I can see. I spend 3 days locked in my hotel room going through documents, following paper trails, connecting dots that paint an increasingly disturbing picture. Father didn't just make bad business decisions, he made criminal ones. Forged signatures on contracts, embezzled funds transferred to offshore accounts, insurance fraud, tax evasion. He'd been stealing from his own company for years, from partners who trusted him, from clients who believed in him, even from employees whose retirement accounts he'd raided to cover his gambling debts. The man who'd called me worthless had built his empire on lies and theft, and it was all documented in files he thought no one would ever see. This is bigger than family drama. This is federal crime territory. The kind of thing that ends in prison sentences, not just public embarrassment. But I need more. I need to understand the full scope of what I'm dealing with, who I'm dealing with. So I do something I haven't done in 10 years. I go back to my childhood home. Father changed the locks after he threw me out, but I still have the key to the side entrance that leads to his home office, the one he never remembers exists because Mother had it installed when she wanted a private way to bring him lunch during his long work hours. It's 3 a.m. when I slip through that door, my heart pounding so hard I'm surprised it doesn't wake the neighbors. The house smells the same furniture polish and Mother's lavender sachets and something else I can't quite name. Memory, maybe. The ghost of who I used to be. I force myself to move through the darkened hallway, my phone flashlight guiding me to Father's office at the back of the house. His filing cabinets are locked, but I know where he keeps the key taped under the second drawer of his desk, same place he's kept it since I was a teenager. Some things never change, even when everything else does. I'm looking for business records, more evidence of his fraud, anything that might explain the threatening text messages. Instead, I find something else entirely. A file labeled Insurance Claims 2014 catches my attention, because that's the year I was disowned. I pull it out expecting maybe property damage or business insurance. What I find instead makes my hands go cold. Mother's hospital admission records. The date jumps out at me immediately. It's the night after I was thrown out. The night I spent sleeping in my car behind a grocery store, sobbing into my steering wheel, believing I was completely alone in the world. Patient Margaret Johnson. Fractured right wrist. Patient claims she fell downstairs. I read the words again, trying to make sense of them. Mother hurt herself the night after I left. She never told me, never mentioned it in the years before I was exiled, never referenced it in any way. But it's the doctor's note at the bottom of the page that makes my breath catch in my throat, that makes the room tilt sideways, that makes me sink into Father's leather chair because my legs won't hold me anymore. Injury pattern inconsistent with falling. Consistent with defensive wound. Patient became agitated when questioned about injury source. Husband present and insistent that no further investigation necessary. Patient discharged against medical advice. My hands shake so badly the paper rattles. I read it again, and again, and again. Defensive wound. Mother didn't fall down the stairs. She raised her hand to protect herself from something from someone, and her wrist broke under the impact. And Father was there insisting no one investigate further, ensuring Mother left before anyone could ask too many questions. The night after he threw me out, he hurt her. Because of me? Because she'd slipped that money into my pocket. Because she'd whispered, "Forgive me." And he'd heard I think about Mother's trembling hands that night, the way she'd turned away, the tears that seemed more complex than simple agreement with Father's rage. I think about the Bible she'd hidden in my suitcase, the note that said, "Forgive me," as if she knew she was failing me, but couldn't find the strength to stop it. And I think about what Father would do to someone who openly defied him, if this is what he did to someone who defied him quietly. The threatening text message suddenly feels less mysterious and more obvious. Your father isn't the only one who wants you gone. Because if father is capable of this, what else is he capable of? And who else in this family knows about it? I leave father's office with the medical records tucked into my bag, my mind racing with implications I'm not ready to fully process. But processing will have to wait. Right now, I need facts. I need evidence. I need to know exactly what happened that night and how many other nights like it there were. The next morning, I start with the neighbors. Most of the families from my childhood have moved away, replaced by younger couples who wouldn't know the Johnson family history. But Mrs. Chen still lives in the pale yellow house next door, the one with the garden that Mother always envied. She's older now, her hair completely silver, but she recognizes me immediately when she opens the door. Monica? Her hand flies to her chest. Oh my goodness, I saw the news about the wedding. About your father. Are you all right? I need to ask you about something that happened 10 years ago. I say, skipping pleasantries. The night I was thrown out. Do you remember it? Her expression shifts discomfort, replacing surprise. Monica, I don't think I should. Please. I keep my voice steady, professional, the tone I use in negotiations when I need someone to trust me. I found Mother's medical records from that night. I know something happened. I need to know what you saw. She hesitates, her eyes darting to the houses around us, as if the neighborhood itself might judge her for speaking. Finally, she steps back and gestures me inside. Her living room smells like jasmine tea and old books. I heard shouting, she says quietly, settling into her armchair like she needs its support. It was late, maybe 11 or midnight. Your father's voice loud enough to carry through the walls. Then glass breaking. I thought maybe someone had dropped something, but then I heard your mother crying. Not just crying, sobbing. The kind of sound that makes your blood run cold. Why didn't you call the police? I ask, though I already know the answer. I almost did. Mrs. Chen's hands twist in her lap. I had the phone in my hand, but your father was an important man. Your family was respected, and I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just a bad argument. Maybe it wasn't my business. She looks at me with eyes full of decades-old guilt. I'm sorry, Monica. I should have done something. I knew something was wrong in that house. We all knew. We all knew. The words echo in my mind as I leave Mrs. Chen's house and visit 3 more neighbors, 2 former family friends, and the pastor who used to lead services at the church we attended. Every single one of them has a story. A time they saw Mother with bruises she explained away. An occasion when Father's temper erupted publicly before he regained control. Whispers about how he monitored Mother's phone, her credit cards, her friendships. People always knew. Nobody helped. The Johnson family's perfect image was always a lie, and everyone in their orbit participated in maintaining it. By the afternoon, I'm back in my hotel room, surrounded by notes and recordings, building a case that gets darker with each piece of evidence. I dig deeper into Father's financial records, and what I find confirms the pattern of abuse extending beyond physical violence. Mother had no access to bank accounts despite being listed as a joint owner. Father had set up the accounts to require dual signatures, but never gave her the ability to actually sign. Credit cards were all in his name only. Even the car she drove was registered to him, never to her. Then I find the legal documents buried in a file marked estate planning. Mother's inheritance from her parents, a substantial amount that should have given her financial independence, had been signed over to Father in a document dated 6 months after their wedding. The signature looks shaky, uncertain, nothing like Mother's usual careful penmanship. I recognize it now for what it is: coercion dressed up as marriage asset management. Father didn't just control Mother physically, he controlled her financially, socially, legally. He built a cage so complete that she couldn't escape even if she wanted to. And when I defied him, when I showed Mother that escape was possible, he punished her for my rebellion. The final piece of evidence comes from an unexpected source. I remember there used to be a small convenience store on the corner, 2 houses down from my childhood home. Mr. Park ran it, and he had security cameras, I remember, because kids in the neighborhood were always warned that Mr. Park saw everything. The store is still there, though it looks more worn than I remember. Mr. Park is there too, older but still sharp-eyed behind the counter. When I explain what I need, he studies me for a long moment. "You're the daughter who became rich," he finally says. "I saw the news about the wedding. I need footage from 10 years ago, from the night I was thrown out. Do you still have archives that go back that far?" He nods slowly. "I keep everything. 7 years required by law, but I keep more. You never know when you need evidence." He quotes me a price that's more than fair, and I pay it immediately. It takes him 3 hours to find the right date and time. The footage is grainy black and white, the angle showing mostly the street but also a partial view of my parents' driveway and front door. Mr. Park transfers it to a thumb drive and hands it to me without comment, though his expression suggests he knows whatever is on this footage isn't going to be pleasant. I watch it in my hotel room on my laptop, the timestamp showing 11:47 p.m. on the night that destroyed my life. For the first few minutes, nothing happens. Just an empty street, a parked car, the glow of porch lights. Then the front door of my parents' house opens. Mother stumbles out, her movements uncoordinated, clearly in pain. Even in the grainy footage, I can see her clutching her right wrist to her chest, her other hand reaching out to steady herself against the doorframe. She makes it 3 steps down the front walk before the door flies open again. Father emerges, his body language aggressive even in silhouette. He closes the distance between them in seconds, grabs Mother's arm, the injured one I can tell by how she recoils, and drags her back toward the house. She tries to resist, her feet sliding on the concrete, but he's stronger, bigger, fueled by rage I know all too well. The door closes behind them, swallowing them both back into the house where no one can see, no one can help, no one will intervene. I watch the footage 3 more times, my hands shaking, tears streaming down my face that I don't bother to wipe away. This is what happened while I was sleeping in my car, believing I was the only victim of that night. This is what Mother endured because she'd shown me the smallest kindness, slipped me the smallest rebellion. And this is what Father is capable of when someone challenges his control. The security footage plays on loop in my mind as I drive back to my childhood home. The family is still at the hospital I checked before coming, called the front desk, pretending to be a concerned business associate. Father is stable but sedated. Mother hasn't left his side. Jasmine is there too, playing the devoted daughter for the nurses and doctors who don't know any better. Which means the house is empty. Which means I have time. I'm looking for something specific now, though I'm not entirely sure what. More evidence, yes, but also understanding. I need to know the full scope of what happened that night, need to piece together the story that's been hidden for a decade. Mother's bedroom separate from Father's. For the past 5 years, I note, is exactly as I remember it. Pale blue walls, white furniture, everything meticulously organized because mess was never tolerated in the Johnson household. But there are small rebellions hidden here, things Father probably never noticed. A romance novel tucked behind the decorative pillows. A photo of me as a child, barely visible in a frame, turned slightly away from the door. And her jewelry box, ornate and old-fashioned, sitting on the dresser like it has nothing to hide. I open it expecting jewelry. Instead, I find a small digital recorder, the kind lawyers use for dictation, tucked beneath a tangle of fake pearls Mother never wore. My hands shake as I pull it out, press play, and hear my father's voice fill the room. "Sign it! Sign it now, or I'll kill both of you. She's poison to this family, Margaret. Poison. And you're poisoned by her if you keep defending her." The sound quality is muffled, like the recorder was hidden in a pocket or beneath something, but the words are unmistakable. Father's voice raw with rage, slightly slurred, he'd been drinking, I can hear it now. Mother's voice comes next, broken by sobs. "Please, Robert. She's my daughter. She's my baby. You can't ask me to do this. I'm not asking." The sound of something hitting a wall, his fist maybe, or something he threw. Mother's sharp intake of breath. "You'll sign these papers disowning her, or so help me God, I'll make sure neither of you lives to regret it. Do you understand me? Robert, please, Do you understand me?" A long silence filled only with Mother's crying. Then her voice so small and defeated it barely registers. "Yes." "Good, now sign. Right here, your signature." "My wrist, I can't." "Use your other hand. Sign it now, Margaret. Now." The sound of pen on paper. Mother's breathing ragged and painful. Then Father's voice again calmer, now satisfied. "There, that's better. See how easy that was. You just needed to understand your priorities." The recording continues for another minute, footsteps a door closing. Mother's quiet sobs gradually fading into silence. Then it cuts off. I play it again, and again. Each time the words hit harder, settled deeper into my understanding of what actually happened that night. I return to Father's office with the recorder clutched in my hand and pull out the original disownment document from his files. I'd seen it before during my investigation of his business dealings, but I hadn't looked closely at the signatures. Now I spread it across his desk under the harsh light of his desk lamp and really examine it. Mother's signature is there at the bottom, shaky and irregular. Nothing like the confident script I remember from birthday cards and permission slips throughout my childhood. The letters are malformed, the pressure inconsistent, the whole thing tilted at an angle that speaks of awkwardness and pain. Mother was right-handed. I remember watching her write grocery lists at the kitchen table, sign checks at the bank address, Christmas cards with elegant penmanship that she took pride in. But this signature was written with her left hand, because Father had just broken her right wrist. I look at the notary seal at the bottom of the document. A lawyer named Howard Pierce witnessed and certified this signature. He had to have seen that something was wrong. Had to have noticed Mother's injury, her distress, the wrongness of the entire situation. But he signed anyway, made it legal. Anyway participated in the machinery that destroyed my life and trapped my mother in terror. Everything I believed for 10 years was wrong. Every night I'd spent angry at Mother for not defending me, for choosing Father's side, for standing silently while I was cast out. All of it was based on a lie. Mother didn't choose Father over me. Mother was beaten and threatened until she had no choice at all. She signed those papers with her left hand, while her right wrist throbbed with pain from defending herself against my father's violence. And then she'd hidden money in my coat pocket because it was the only rebellion she could manage. She'd tucked her Bible into my suitcase because it was the only protection she could offer. She'd written, "Forgive me," because she knew what she'd been forced to do was unforgivable, even though it wasn't really her choice. For 10 years she'd lived in that house with the man who'd beaten her, who'd threatened to kill her, who'd forced her to sacrifice her daughter to save both their lives. 10 years of captivity while I built an empire and believed she'd abandoned me willingly. The grief hits me all at once, a wave so powerful I can't stand against it. My legs give out and I sink to the floor of Father's office, surrounded by evidence of his crimes, clutching the recorder that holds proof of Mother's torture. The sobs come from somewhere deep inside me, 10 years of misdirected anger transforming into anguish for what Mother endured. I'd been so focused on my own pain, my own betrayal, my own survival, that I'd never stopped to question the narrative Father had crafted. I'd accepted that Mother was weak, complicit, willing to sacrifice me for her own comfort. But she wasn't weak. She was trapped. She was beaten. She was terrorized into doing something that must have destroyed her, even as it destroyed me. And I'd spent 10 years hating her for it. I cry until I have nothing left, until my throat is raw and my eyes are swollen, and the expensive hotel makeup I'd applied this morning is completely ruined. I cry for Mother, for the daughter I was, for the relationship we could have had if Father hadn't poisoned it with violence and fear. I cry for all the years we lost, for all the times she must have wanted to reach out, but couldn't, for all the ways his control extended beyond that one terrible night. The house is silent around me, except for my sobs. No one here to witness my breakdown. No one to see the powerful CEO reduced to a broken daughter on her father's office floor. Just me and the ghosts of what happened here. The truth finally dragged into the light after a decade in the dark. When I can finally breathe again, when the tears have slowed to occasional hiccups, I whisper to the empty room, to the memory of the mother I misunderstood, to the woman who sacrificed everything to keep us both alive. Mama, I'm so sorry. I should have saved you. I pick myself up from Father's office floor and begin walking through the house, really seeing it for the first time in a decade. The hardwood floors creak under my feet, with the same sounds I remember from childhood, when I would sneak downstairs late at night for water and try to avoid the spots that would wake my parents. The air smells stale, like windows that haven't been opened in too long, like a house that's forgotten how to breathe. My old bedroom is on the second floor, third door on the right. I stand in the doorway for a long moment before entering, half expecting to see my teenage self sprawled on the bed with homework scattered around her. The walls are still painted the purple I'd begged for when I was 15, though the color has faded to something sadder, less vibrant. My furniture is gone, sold or donated probably, but the curtains are the same, and there's still a water stain on the ceiling from when the bathroom above leaked during a storm. This room held so many dreams. I'd lie in that spot where my bed used to be and imagine my future plan, my escape from Atlanta, picture the woman I'd become. I never imagined it would happen the way it did. Never imagined I'd have to burn down my entire life to build a new one from the ashes. The kitchen feels smaller than I remember, though nothing has changed. The same white cabinets, the same granite countertops that Father had installed to impress guests, the same window over the sink where Mother would stand and stare out at the garden while washing dishes. I can almost see her there teaching me to bake on Saturday mornings when Father was at the office. Her hands guiding mine as we measured flour, her voice patient as she explained why we cream butter and sugar together, why we don't overmix the batter. She was so gentle then, so careful with me. I thought it was just her nature, but now I wonder if she was already learning how to be careful, how to avoid triggering the violence that was waiting beneath Father's surface. The dining room is where the tribunal happened, where my fate was decided by people who'd already made up their minds before I even sat down. I stand in the doorway and can see it all again, Father at the head of the table, Mother behind him with her hands twisted together. Jasmine on the stairs, watching like it was entertainment instead of execution. The house feels haunted by ghosts of who we all used to be, or maybe who we pretended to be. A family that looked perfect in Christmas card photos, but was rotting from the inside out. I returned to Mother's bedroom, drawn by a need to understand her better, to know the woman who suffered in silence while I was building empires and nursing grudges. Her dresser drawers are organized with the precision of someone who's learned that disorder invites criticism. I search through them carefully, respectfully, until I find what I'm looking for in the bottom drawer, hidden beneath winter sweaters that smell like mothballs and lavender. A diary, leather-bound and worn, the pages filled with Mother's careful handwriting. I sit on her bed and begin to read, my heart breaking with each entry. March 15th. Robert threw a plate at the wall tonight because dinner was cold. I didn't duck fast enough. The cut on my forehead will be hard to explain at church. July 3rd, I've been researching shelters, places we could go. But if I take the girls and run, he'll find us. He has resources connections. He's already threatened to make sure I never see them again if I embarrass him. I don't know what to do. October 22nd. Monica asked me today why I stay. She doesn't understand. She's so strong, so brave. I want to tell her the truth, but if she knows, she'll confront him. And if she confronts him, I'm afraid of what he'll do to her. December 8th. I stay because if I leave, he'll hurt whoever's left. If I take Monica but leave Jasmine, he'll punish her for my defiance. If I take both girls, he'll hunt us down. If I go alone, they'll have no protection from him at all. So I stay. I endure. I try to shield them from the worst of him, even though I know I'm failing. The entries go on for years, a chronicle of impossible choices and escalating fear. Mother wasn't complicit. She was strategic, calculating which sacrifices might save us from worse fates, trying to be a shield when she had nothing to shield us with except her own body. I close the diary and continue searching Mother's room with new purpose, looking for anything else she might have hidden, any other evidence of the woman beneath the victim. In her closet behind the evening gowns she wore to Father's business dinners, I find a loose floorboard. It takes me 3 tries to pry it up, and when I do, I discover a small metal box tucked into the space beneath. Inside the box is a treasure trove of things Mother saved despite Father's control, despite the danger of keeping anything he didn't approve of. Old photos of me as a baby, my hospital bracelet from when I was born, report cards from elementary school with gold stars, and teacher comments about what a bright, creative child I was. She kept pieces of me even after I was erased from the family narrative, hidden evidence that I'd existed, that I'd mattered, that I'd been loved. And letters. Dozens of letters, all addressed to me, all written in Mother's hand, all unsent. I open them with trembling fingers and read words that were never meant to stay silent. My darling daughter, if you ever read this, know that not a day has passed when I haven't thought of you. I see your face in every young woman I pass on the street. I hear your laugh in my dreams. I pray that you're safe, that you're happy, that you've found people who love you the way you deserve to be loved. Another letter dated 3 years ago. I tried to find you today. I hired a private investigator with money I've been hiding from your father, $20 here, $30 there, saved over years. But you've covered your tracks well. You've learned to be invisible. I'm proud of you for surviving, even if it means I can't reach you. And another from 2 years ago. I saw your name in a business journal. CEO of a consulting firm. My daughter, the failure now running a successful company. I cut out the article and keep it hidden with these letters. Your father would destroy it if he found it. He still speaks your name like a curse. But I speak it like a prayer. I'm crying again, but these tears are different. These are tears of connection, of understanding, of grief for the relationship we lost, and the mother I never got to know. The last letter in the box is dated 1 year ago, the paper newer than the rest, the ink still dark. I open it with a sense of foreboding, some instinct warning me that whatever Mother wrote here is important, dangerous even. Monica, there's something you need to know about Jasmine. She's not who you think she is. The letter ends there, unfinished. Or maybe hidden. Or maybe Mother couldn't bring herself to write the rest, whatever truth she was about to reveal, too terrible to commit to paper even in secret. I stare at those words until they blur my mind, racing with questions I can't answer. What did Mother mean? What secret about Jasmine was important enough to document but dangerous enough to leave incomplete? And why do I suddenly feel like I'm standing on the edge of a revelation that will change everything I thought I knew about my family? I'm still holding Mother's unfinished letter when my phone buzzes with an email notification. The sender is Gen Test Labs, the forensic DNA testing company I'd hired 3 weeks ago as part of building my legal case against Father. I'd requested court-ordered verification of all family members' biological relationships, ostensibly to establish standing in the fraud case I was preparing. In reality, I'd been chasing a hunch that started at the wedding, when I really looked at Jasmine and saw a stranger. My hands shake as I open the attachment. The document is clinical professional, filled with percentages and genetic markers that spell out truths in the language of science. Monica Johnson and Robert Johnson. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Biological father confirmed. I scroll down to the next section, my heart pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. Jasmine Johnson and Robert Johnson. Probability of paternity, 0%. Biological father excluded. The words blur and refocus. I read them again, and again. 0%. Not his daughter. Not his biological child. Jasmine, the golden child. The favored one. The daughter who stayed and thrived while I was cast out. She shares no DNA with the man who calls himself her father. I grab Mother's letters again, spreading them across the bed, searching for fragments I might have missed on the first reading. Then I find it tucked in the middle of a letter dated 30 years ago, when Mother's handwriting was younger, less careful. I've made a terrible mistake. Robert was in one of his rages, worse than usual. He'd locked me in the house for 3 days, monitoring every call, every movement. When he finally left for a business trip, I ran. I went to Sarah's house. She was the only friend he hadn't scared away yet. Her husband Thomas was there. He was kind. He listened. He made me feel human again after months of being treated like property. One night turned into comfort I shouldn't have sought. One mistake turned into a pregnancy I couldn't explain. Another letter dated a few months later. Robert knows something is wrong. He counts days, watches me, asks questions I can't answer honestly. But I'm trapped. If I confess, he'll kill me. If I run, he'll find me. So I'll have this baby and pray she looks enough like me that he never asks too many questions. And another from years later when Jasmine was a toddler. He suspects. I see it in how he looks at her, how he measures her features against his own. But his pride won't let him admit that his wife betrayed him, that the daughter everyone admires might not be his. So he keeps us both a living reminder of his failure to control me completely. And I pay for that failure every day, in ways that would break me if I let myself feel it. The pieces snap together with horrifying clarity. Mother's affair happened 29 years ago during one of Father's violent episodes. She got pregnant with Jasmine. Father suspected, but could never prove it without admitting his wife had escaped his control long enough to betray him. So he kept them both, kept Mother trapped through fear, and kept Jasmine as a trophy that reminded him daily of his humiliation. And suddenly, everything makes sense. Mother's overprotection of Jasmine wasn't favoritism born of cruelty toward me. It was survival strategy born of terror. Every time Father's temper flared, every time his suspicions about Jasmine's parentage surfaced, Mother had to deflect, had to prove Jasmine was worth keeping, had to make her so perfect and so valuable that Father wouldn't risk confirming his worst fears. Because if Father ever proved Jasmine wasn't his biological daughter, his rage would be uncontrollable. He would destroy Mother for the betrayal. He would destroy Jasmine for being living evidence of his failure. And he would destroy anyone else who got in his way. So Mother made Jasmine the favorite, praised her constantly, positioned her as the good daughter, the obedient one, the one who never caused problems. Not because Mother loved Jasmine more, but because making Jasmine indispensable was the only way to keep her alive. And I was sacrificed to maintain that protection. Every time Mother chose Jasmine over me, every time she stayed silent when Father criticized me, every time she let me take the blame for things I didn't do, it was all strategy. Keep Jasmine perfect and valuable. Keep Monica as the acceptable target for Father's rage. Keep everyone alive by giving him someone to focus his cruelty on, who wasn't the daughter whose existence challenged his masculinity. I was the shield. I just never knew it. The guilt Mother must have carried sacrificing one daughter to protect another. The impossible mathematics of maternal love under tyranny. How do you choose which child to save when saving both isn't an option? How do you live with yourself when the price of one daughter's safety is another daughter's suffering? I think about Jasmine at the wedding, her rage when I gave my toast, her insistence that she was the loved one, and I was the failure. Does she know? Has she always known that her favored status came at a cost, that her very existence was the fault line threatening to destroy the family? Or has she lived her whole life believing the lie Father and Mother constructed to keep her safe? I'm still processing this revelation, still trying to reconcile everything I thought I knew with this new truth, when my phone rings. The screen shows a number I recognize but haven't seen in 10 years. Jasmine. My thumb hovers over the decline button. Part of me isn't ready for this conversation, isn't ready to face my sister with this knowledge heavy between us. But another part knows that this moment was inevitable from the second I walked into that wedding reception. I answer. Monica. Jasmine's voice is different than it was at the wedding. No rage, no performance. Just something raw and uncertain. We need to talk. I just got a copy of the DNA results, too. Silence stretches between us, filled with everything we've never said, everything we've never been allowed to say, everything that's been buried under decades of family lies. He's not my father. Her voice cracks on the words. The man who raised me, who I thought was my father, the DNA test says we're not related at all. But you and I, Monica, we share a mother. We're half-sisters." "I know," I say quietly. "I just found out." "Did you know before? Is that why you came to the wedding? To expose me, to ruin everything?" The questions come fast, desperate, like she's trying to make sense of a world that's just tilted sideways. "No, I swear I didn't know. I was investigating father for fraud, and the DNA test was just part of building the case. I found out the same time you did." Another silence. Then, so quietly, I almost miss it. "Monica, I'm scared. If father finds out that I know if he realizes the secret is out." Her voice breaks completely. "I don't know what he'll do." "Meet me at Piedmont Park," I tell her. "The Rose Garden, 1 hour." Neutral ground, public enough to feel safe, private enough to fall apart if we need to. I arrive first, pacing among the roses that are just beginning to bloom in the spring warmth. When Jasmine appears at the garden entrance, I barely recognize her. No wedding dress, no performance, no armor. Just my sister in jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back carelessly, her face bare of makeup and swollen from crying. She looks younger this way, vulnerable, human. We sit on a bench facing the fountain, not quite looking at each other. Both of us unsure how to begin a conversation we've never been allowed to have. "I'm not even his daughter," Jasmine says, finally her voice hollow. "My entire life, my entire identity, it's all a lie. If I'm not Robert Johnson's daughter, then who am I? What am I?" The question hangs in the air between us, heavy with existential weight. "You're still you," I say carefully. "DNA doesn't change who you've become." "Doesn't it?" She turns to me, and I see desperation in her eyes. "Everything I've ever done, every choice I've made was based on being his daughter, being a Johnson, living up to the family name. If that's not real, if I'm not real, then what was the point of any of it?" I recognize the spiral she's in. I've been there myself, that moment when everything you believed about yourself gets ripped away and you're left floating in nothing. "I always felt different," she continues, her voice breaking. "Always felt like something was wrong with me. The way he looked at me sometimes, like he couldn't stand the sight of me. I thought I was imagining it, thought I was being paranoid. But now it makes horrible sense. Every time he looked at me, he was seeing Mom's betrayal. He was seeing his own humiliation walking around in his house, calling him Dad. Jasmine, you know what the worst part is?" She laughs, but it's a sound without humor. "I spent my whole life trying to be perfect for him. Perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect everything. I thought if I was good enough, he'd love me the way I saw other fathers love their daughters. But he couldn't. Because every time he looked at me, he saw proof that he wasn't enough to keep his wife faithful." I reach out and take her hand. She doesn't pull away. "He was cruel to you too," I say, realizing the truth as I speak it. "All this time I thought you were the favorite. I thought you had everything while I had nothing." "Favorite?" Jasmine's voice rises with disbelief. "Monica, he hated me. Maybe not as obviously as he hated you, but in ways that were just as destructive. The constant criticism, the impossible standards, the way he'd praise me publicly but tear me apart in private. You thought he loved me more. He kept me around to punish Mom. I was a living reminder of her betrayal, and he made sure I paid for it every single day." She pulls her hand from mine and wraps her arms around herself like she's trying to hold together pieces that are threatening to fall apart. "When you refused that arranged marriage and he threw you out, part of me was so angry at you. But another part was desperately jealous. You escaped Monica. You got out. And I've been trapped this whole time performing the role of perfect daughter for a man who never wanted me in the first place." The tears come then for both of us. 10 years of manufactured rivalry, of believing lies that kept us apart, of competing for love that was never fairly distributed. We were never really enemies. We were both casualties of a toxic marriage, 2 daughters destroyed by different weapons, but destroyed nonetheless. "I'm sorry," I say, and I mean it with everything I have. "I'm sorry I thought you were the enemy. I'm sorry I didn't see that you were suffering too." "I'm sorry I didn't defend you that night," Jasmine whispers. "I watched him throw you out, and I said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my problem that you'd brought it on yourself. But the truth is, I was relieved. Relieved it was you and not me. Relieved that his rage had a target that wasn't me for once." "We were children," I tell her. Though I'm not sure either of us were children by then, we'd both been forced to grow up too fast in that house. We were both just trying to survive. I've been married to Darius for less than a week, and I already regret it. Jasmine's confession comes quietly, like she's afraid saying it out loud will make it more real. He's not who I thought he was. He's been pushing me to do things to help him with something involving the family, but he won't tell me what. And now I realize he probably knew about this DNA thing before I did. He probably knew everything. He did, I confirm. He orchestrated the entire wedding situation to get me there. I don't know his full agenda yet, but whatever it is, he's been manipulating all of us. Jasmine nods, unsurprised. That sounds about right. I'm apparently terrible at reading people. I chose a husband who's using me. I spent my life trying to please a father who isn't my father. I competed with a sister who should have been my ally. She looks at me directly now, her eyes red but focused. Can we fix this? Can we fix us? I think we can try, I say honestly. We've both been victims of the same system. Maybe it's time we stopped being victims and started being survivors together. For the first time since the wedding, Jasmine smiles. It's small, tentative, but genuine. I always admired you, you know. Even when I was supposed to hate you. You were so strong, so sure of yourself. You stood up to him when no one else would. I was too afraid. You were protecting yourself. There's no shame in that. Maybe. She takes a deep breath, and I watch her straighten her spine, see something shift in her expression, determination replacing despair. But I'm done being afraid. I'm done protecting him, done maintaining his lies, done playing the role he forced me into. If I'm not his daughter anyway, I've got nothing left to lose. She takes my hand again, this time with purpose, with strength. Help me make this right, Monica. Everything he's done to Mom, to you, to me, to everyone he's hurt over the years. Let's bring him down together. I look at my sister, really look at her, and see not the spoiled favorite I'd resented for a decade, but a woman who's been in her own prison fighting her own battles, surviving her own war. We're not the same, we'll never be the same, but maybe we don't need to be. Maybe being allies is enough. Together, I agree, squeezing her hand. Let's end this. After leaving Jasmine at the park with promises to meet again tomorrow to plan our next steps, I drive directly to Evelyn's house. She needs to know everything the DNA results. Father's abuse the alliance Jasmine and I have formed, but more than that, I need her counsel. Evelyn has been my anchor through every storm for the past decade, and I need her wisdom now, more than ever. She opens the door before I can knock, her face creased with concern. I saw the videos from the wedding. The whole internet saw them. Are you all right? Not even close. I admit stepping into the familiar warmth of her home. But I'm figuring it out. Can we talk? We settle in her living room with tea, neither of us drinks, and I tell her everything. The medical records, the security footage. Mother's letters, the DNA results, revealing Jasmine's true parentage. Evelyn listens with the focused attention she's always given me, asking clarifying questions, making connections I haven't seen yet. Show me photos from the wedding, she says when I finish. I want to see this Darius character who's manipulating my girl. I pull up the album on my phone, photos I'd taken surreptitiously during the reception, documenting the event more from investigative instinct than sentimentality. I scroll through images of the ballroom, the guests, the family members frozen in various states of shock and horror. Then I reach the photos of Darius, him at the head table, him talking to guests. Him watching me give my toast with that satisfied expression I couldn't decode at the time. Evelyn goes completely still. Her teacup freezes halfway to her mouth, then lowers with a trembling hand that nearly spills the contents. Evelyn? I lean forward, alarmed by the sudden pallor of her face. What's wrong? That ring. Her voice comes out strangled, barely above a whisper. Zoom in on his right hand. The silver ring. I enlarge the image, focusing on Darius's hand where it rests on the table. The unusual silver ring catches the light, its intricate Celtic-looking pattern clearly visible. Evelyn makes a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. That's my father's ring. It's been in my family for 3 generations. I gave it to my son when he was 5 years old, right before. She can't finish the sentence. The room tilts. I stare at the photo, then at Evelyn, then back at the photo, my mind trying and failing to process what she's suggesting. Your son, I say slowly. The one you lost in the custody battle. The one you searched for. His name was Marcus. Evelyn's hands shake so badly she has to set down her teacup. Marcus Evelyn Carter, named after my father. He was 5 when his father took him and disappeared. Stephen said I was an unfit mother because I worked too much because I put my career before family. The judge believed him, gave him full custody, and then he just vanished. Changed Marcus's name, moved out of state, blocked every attempt I made to contact them. She stands abruptly, moves to a bookshelf, and pulls down a photo album I've never seen before. Her hands fumble with the pages until she finds what she's looking for. A photograph of a small boy with dark eyes and a serious expression wearing an oversized silver ring on his tiny finger. This was the last photo I took of him before I lost him. Look at his face, Monica. Really look. I compare the childhood photo to the images on my phone. The bone structure is different with age, but the eyes are the same, that intense, calculating gaze. The shape of his jaw, the way he holds himself. Darius is your son. I breathe the pieces clicking together with sickening clarity. He found me. Evelyn sinks back into her chair, tears streaming down her face. After all these years, after I'd given up hope, he found me. But instead of coming to me, instead of reuniting, he... Her voice breaks completely. He infiltrated your life, married your sister. Why would he do that? The answer crystallizes in my mind with terrible logic. He found out about me, about us, about how you mentored me, invested in me, helped me build my empire. And he felt replaced. Evelyn's expression crumbles. Oh God. He thinks I gave up on him and found a replacement daughter. He thinks I abandoned him for you. You searched for him for 15 years, I say urgently. You told me. You spent your fortune trying to find him. But he doesn't know that. How would he? Stephen probably told him I didn't want him, that I chose my career over him, that I never looked back. She covers her face with her hands. My baby boy grew up believing I abandoned him. And when he finally found me, he discovered I'd taken in another young woman, mentored her, given her everything I couldn't give him. The cruelty of Darius's plan becomes clear. He didn't just want to hurt me by manipulating my family, he wanted to hurt Evelyn by destroying the woman she'd chosen to mentor. He wanted to prove that her replacement daughter was as toxic and destructive as he believed his mother to be. He wanted to punish both of us for a crime we didn't commit. The wedding, I say, my voice hollow. He orchestrated everything. Getting me there, making sure I'd give that toast, ensuring maximum damage. He wanted to turn me into the villain so you'd see what a mistake you'd made by investing in me. And I never suspected. Evelyn's pain is visceral, radiating from her in waves. I talked about him to you, mourned him with you, and never once did you mention that your ex-boyfriend had the same name. Did you know? When you were dating him 12 years ago, did you know he was my son? No, I say firmly. He went by Darius then, not Marcus. And he never mentioned you never talked about his mother at all. If I'd known, I would have told you immediately. You know I would have. She nods, believing me, but the hurt doesn't diminish. 25 years of searching, grieving, hoping only to discover her son is alive, found her, and chose revenge over reunion. The silence between us is heavy with shared pain and separate grief. I've lost my illusions about my family. She's lost her illusions about her son. Then her phone rings. We both stare at it on the coffee table. Unknown number. Evelyn reaches for it with a trembling hand, and I see her read the caller ID display that shows not a number but a name that must have been in her phone contacts all along, dormant for decades. Marcus Carter. She answers on speaker, and Darius's voice fills the room, smooth, satisfied, cruel, in a way I never heard when we dated. Hello, Mother. Did you miss me? Or were you too busy with your replacement daughter? Evelyn's face drains of all color, and I watch my mentor, the strongest woman I've ever known, crumble under the weight of her son's contempt. I take the envelope from Evelyn's trembling hands, but before I can open it, she speaks again. Not yet. After you read what's inside, you'll have questions. But first, there's something else I need to do, something I should have done 25 years ago if I'd had the courage. Evelyn, what are you talking about? She pulls out her phone and shows me an email. It's from a producer at a national talk show, one of those programs that airs in the afternoon and specializes in dramatic family reunions and confrontations. The subject line reads, Re-Mother and Son Reunion Special. Darius contacted them. Evelyn explains, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. He wants a public confrontation. He's demanding I appear on live television to face him, to answer for what he believes I did. The producer reached out to me, said they'd frame it as a heartwarming reunion story, but I know better. Darius wants to destroy me in front of millions of people. Then don't do it, I say immediately. You don't owe him a public spectacle. Your health can't handle this kind of stress. That's exactly what I told her, Jasmine adds from beside me, having climbed into the car as well. This is manipulation, pure and simple. But Evelyn shakes her head, that familiar determination settling into her features. I've spent 25 years wondering what I'd say to my son if I ever found him. Now I have that chance, and I'm not going to waste it hiding. He deserves to hear the truth, even if he doesn't believe it. And maybe, just maybe, if I can reach him in front of all those witnesses, he'll finally understand that I never abandoned him. Or he'll eviscerate you on national television, I counter. Then at least I'll have tried. She squeezes my hand. Monica, you taught me something over these past 10 years. You taught me that running from pain doesn't make it go away. You faced your family, faced your father, faced everything that destroyed you. You didn't hide. You stood up and demanded to be seen. Now I need to do the same with my son. I want to argue, want to protect her the way she's protected me, but I recognize that look in her eyes. It's the same one I had standing in that ballroom at Jasmine's wedding, the look of someone who's done running. 3 days later, I'm sitting in the studio audience of Reunited Hearts, a talk show I've never watched but that apparently has millions of loyal viewers. The stage is set up like a living room, warm and intimate, designed to make guests feel comfortable sharing their deepest pain for entertainment. Jasmine sits beside me, both of us surrounded by bodyguards who scan the crowd constantly for threats. The host, a woman named Patricia Chen with an overly sympathetic smile, introduces the segment with dramatic flair. Today we have a story 25 years in the making. A mother who lost her son in a bitter custody battle, a son who grew up believing his mother abandoned him. After decades apart, they're finally ready to face each other and seek healing. Please welcome Evelyn Carter. Evelyn walks onto the stage and my heart clenches at how fragile she looks under the bright lights. She's wearing a navy dress, her silver hair styled carefully, but nothing can hide the toll the past few weeks have taken. She sits in the armchair, her hands folded in her lap, her spine straight despite everything. Evelyn, thank you for being here, Patricia begins. Tell us about your son. His name is Marcus, Evelyn says, her voice clear and strong. I gave birth to him 33 years ago. He was the light of my life, my entire world. And when he was 5 years old, my ex-husband took him from me in a custody battle that destroyed us both. Dong! She speaks for 10 minutes telling the story of the divorce, the judge who believed Stephen's lies about her being an unfit mother, the legal system that failed them both. She talks about the years of searching, the private investigators, the dead ends, and false hope. "I never stopped loving him," she says, her voice breaking. "Not for one single day." "Well," Patricia says with that manufactured warmth, "today your son is here and he's ready to speak his truth. Please welcome Marcus Chen, who goes by Darius." The audience applauds as Darius walks onto the stage. He's dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his expression carefully controlled. But I can see the rage simmering beneath the surface, the pain he's weaponized into something sharp and cutting. He doesn't hug Evelyn, doesn't even look at her as he sits in the opposite chair. "Darius," Patricia begins. "You heard your mother's story. What's your response?" "My response." He finally turns to face Evelyn, and the contempt in his eyes makes me flinch. "My response is that it's a beautiful story, very moving, very convenient, but it's also a lie." "Marcus," Evelyn starts, but he cuts her off. "Don't call me that. That's not my name anymore. You don't get to use the name you gave me after you abandoned me." "I didn't abandon you," Evelyn says, her voice steady but her hands trembling in her lap. "Your father took you. He violated custody agreements, he moved across state lines. He changed your name and disappeared. I searched for you for 15 years. You gave up." Darius's voice rises. "You stopped looking. You moved on with your life. You built your empire, made your millions, and forgot you ever had a son." "I never forgot," Evelyn says, tears streaming down her face now. "I had to stop searching because I'd spent everything I had trying to find you. I was broken, and my investigators told me you were either dead or so deeply hidden I'd never find you. But I never stopped loving you. I never stopped hoping." She pulls out a folder from beside her chair, hands shaking as she opens it. "I brought proof. Investigator reports spanning 15 years. Receipts totaling over $2 million spent searching for you. Letters I wrote every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone I missed. Letters I could never send because I didn't know where you were." She holds up pages filled with her handwriting, dozens of them addressed to "My beloved Marcus," in ink that's faded with age. Darius stares at the letters, something flickering across his face. Doubt, maybe, or unwanted recognition of truth. But then his expression hardens again. "You gave up," he shouts, standing abruptly. The audience gasps. "And then you found her." He points directly at me in the audience, his finger shaking with rage. "You found Monica Johnson and you gave her everything that should have been mine. The mentorship, the investment, the love. You replaced me." "She didn't replace you," I find myself saying, standing despite the bodyguards trying to pull me back down. "She grieved you. She mourned you every single day. And she helped me because she couldn't help you because you were lost to her." "Convenient justification," Darius spits. "My mother couldn't find her real son, so she adopted a substitute. A poor, pathetic girl who reminded her of everything she failed at. That's you, Monica. You're not her protege. You're her consolation prize." "That's enough," Evelyn says, her voice cutting through his rage with surprising strength. "You want to hurt me, fine. Blame me, hate me, punish me for every year you suffered. But don't you dare speak to her like that. Monica didn't ask to be caught in the middle of our tragedy. She was a young woman who needed help, and I helped her because that's what mothers do. That's what I would have done for you if I'd been given the chance." "But you weren't given the chance, were you?" Darius's smile is cruel. "Because you weren't good enough. You weren't mother enough. The judge saw through you, and Dad saved me from you." "Your father lied." Evelyn's composure finally cracks. "He told the judge I was neglectful, that I cared more about my career than my son. But the truth is, he couldn't stand that I was more successful than him. He took you to punish me, and he poisoned you against me to make sure I could never have you back, even if I found you." The studio is completely silent. Even Patricia has stopped her manufactured reactions, caught up in the raw pain unfolding in front of her cameras. "I don't believe you," Darius says, but his voice wavers. I can't believe you. Because if I believe you, then everything Dad told me was a lie. My entire childhood was a lie. And I won't. He stops, his face twisting with emotion too complex to name. Then he turns and storms toward the stage exit. Marcus, please. Evelyn calls after him, half rising from her chair. Don't leave like this. Let me show you the documents. Let me prove. But he's already at the edge of the stage, and he turns back one final time, his face a mask of rage and pain, and something that looks almost like grief. You haven't seen the last of me, he shouts, his voice carrying across the studio. None of you have. This isn't over. I'll make sure you all pay for what you've done. Then he's gone, disappeared behind the curtains, leaving Evelyn collapsed in her chair and an audience stunned into silence. The cameras keep rolling. The television segment ends with Patricia Chen trying to salvage some semblance of closure from the wreckage, but there is none. Evelyn is devastated, the audience is uncomfortable, and Darius's parting threat hangs in the air like smoke. I rush backstage to find Evelyn being attended to by paramedics. Her blood pressure dangerously elevated, her breathing shallow. I'm taking you back to the hospital, I tell her, and for once she doesn't argue. The next 2 days blur together in a haze of hospital visits, lawyer meetings, and preparation for Father's upcoming trial. Evelyn is stable but weak, the confrontation with Darius having taken a toll her body can't easily recover from. Jasmine has become my constant companion, the two of us working in tandem to build the case that will finally bring Father to justice. It's late afternoon on the third day when Jasmine tells me she's going back to the house one more time. I need to grab some of Mother's documents, she explains. Medical records, financial statements, anything that might help establish the pattern of abuse. Father's still in custody and Mother's staying at Aunt Patricia's. The house is empty. It's the perfect time. Take one of the bodyguards with you, I insist, but she shakes her head. I'll be fine. It's broad daylight and I'll be in and out in 30 minutes. Besides, we need the security here with you. You're the one Father wants dead. Remember? She's right, but I still feel uneasy watching her leave. Something about the way she moves suggests urgency beyond simple document retrieval. But before I can question her further, my lawyer calls with updates about trial scheduling, and the moment passes. 3 hours later, my phone rings. Jasmine's name flashes on the screen, and when I answer, her voice is shaking so badly I can barely understand her. Monica, you need to come here. Now. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Just come. Jasmine, what's wrong? What happened? I found something bad. I can't explain over the phone. You just need to see this. Monica, please, come to the house right now. The line goes dead before I can respond. I stare at my phone, every instinct screaming that this could be a trap, that Darius could have gotten to her, that this could be exactly the kind of isolated situation that makes me vulnerable. But the terror in her voice was real, and she's my sister. If she's in danger, I can't abandon her. I tell my bodyguards I'm going for a walk around the hotel block. They're not happy about it, but I insist, and the moment I'm out of their sight, I slip into a rideshare and give the driver my childhood address. The house looks exactly as it did the last time I was here, though somehow more ominous in the fading afternoon light. Jasmine's car is in the driveway, the front door slightly ajar. I push it open cautiously, calling her name. Upstairs, Father's office. I climb the stairs with my heart pounding, my phone clutched in my hand, ready to call 911 at the first sign of danger. But when I reach the office, I find only Jasmine surrounded by papers spread across every available surface, her face pale and tear-streaked. I was looking for Mother's medical records, she says without preamble. I was going through Father's filing cabinets, checking behind folders, looking for anything he might have hidden, and I found this. She holds up a leather-bound journal, expensive and nondescript. It was inside a hollowed-out law book on the shelf, like something out of a spy movie. But Monica, what's inside? She opens it to a marked page, and I read Father's handwriting, neat and controlled despite the violence of his words. April 3rd, Monica has taken control of my company. Everything I built stolen by the daughter I discarded. The humiliation is unbearable. Margaret is useless, crying and wringing her hands, but offering no solutions. Jasmine is married to that Chen boy who seems to know far too much about our family. I'm surrounded by failures and traitors. Monica must be eliminated. She'll destroy everything if she's allowed to continue. My hands shake as I flip through more pages, each entry more disturbing than the last. Plans forming. Options considered. The methodical progression of a man deciding to murder his own daughter. "There's more," Jasmine says, pointing to the desk. "I found these in a locked drawer. The key was hidden in that ceramic pen holder." She spreads out printed emails, the headers showing encrypted accounts and anonymous routing. The language is coded, but clear enough discussions of the target, timelines, payment schedules. One email stands out, dated 6 weeks ago. Target Monica Johnson. Method must appear accidental. Vehicle collision preferred. Timing. After civil trial concludes and media attention dies down. When subject believes she is safe and lowers her guard. Payment, $50,000. Upfront, $50,000 upon completion. The response from someone identified as J. Martinez is brief and professional. Understood. Will begin surveillance of target's patterns and routines. Estimate 2 to 3 weeks for optimal opportunity once timeline begins. I feel like I'm going to be sick. This isn't abstract hatred or empty threats. This is a concrete plan to murder me, laid out with the same attention to detail father once applied to business deals. There's a ledger too, Jasmine continues, her voice barely above a whisper. Bank records showing a wire transfer of $50,000 to an offshore account. The date matches the email about upfront payment. She shows me the bank statement, and there it is in black and white, my father paying someone to kill me, documented as casually as any other business expense. And this, Jasmine reaches under the desk, her fingers finding something taped to the underside of the drawer. She pulls out a micro SD card in a small plastic case. I almost missed it. I only found it because I was checking everywhere looking for anything he might have hidden. She inserts the card into her laptop, and after a moment of loading, an audio file appears. She clicks play, and father's voice fills the office, clear and unmistakable, despite the slightly tinny quality of a phone call on speaker. I want her dead, Martinez. I don't care how you do it, just make it clean. No traces back to me. My daughter has taken everything from me, my company, my reputation, my control over my own life. That bitch has destroyed me, and she'll pay with her life. A second voice responds, accented and calm. I understand, Mr. Johnson. The price we discussed covers all contingencies. Once you transfer the second payment, I'll proceed with the plan. You'll have your problem solved within the month. Good. Make sure she suffers, Martinez. I want her last moments to be filled with the knowledge that she never should have come back. That she never should have challenged me. That failures like her don't get to win. Make her understand that before you finish it. As you wish. The recording ends. The silence in the office is absolute. I realize I've stopped breathing and force myself to inhale. My father, the man who gave me life, who I once loved, despite everything, has paid someone to murder me. Not in the heat of rage, not as an empty threat, but as a calculated business decision. And he wanted me to suffer, wanted my last thoughts to be of his victory. Monica, say something. Jasmine's voice breaks through my shock. Please tell me what we do now. I look at the evidence spread across father's desk, the journal, the emails, the bank records, the recording. Everything we need to prove attempted murder, conspiracy, solicitation of a crime. Everything we need to ensure father never walks free again. But more than that, I look at my sister, who risked coming here alone to find evidence that could save my life, who chose me over the man who raised her, who proved that blood isn't always thicker than water, but choice and courage are. We call the police. I say, my voice steadier than I feel. Right now. We call them, we show them everything, and we make sure father never gets the chance to activate this Martinez person. And then Jasmine, we make sure he never hurts anyone ever again. She nods, already pulling out her phone, but her hands are shaking so badly she nearly drops it. "You need to see this. Now," she says, echoing her earlier words. "He's planning to kill you, Monica. We have to stop him before the trial." I take the phone from her trembling hands and dial 911 myself, because my sister has already done the brave part. Now it's my turn to finish it. Father wanted to eliminate me. Instead, he's created the alliance that will eliminate him. The police arrive within 15 minutes, two detectives who listen to our story with increasingly serious expressions. They bag the evidence, take our statements, and by 3 a.m, Father is under arrest in his hospital bed. The charges are severe enough that bail will be astronomical if granted at all: conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation of murder for hire, and a list of financial crimes my lawyer will add tomorrow when the sun rises. But Jasmine and I don't sleep. We can't. There's too much to do, too much at stake, too many years of damage to document and prepare for the legal battle ahead. We set up a war room in my hotel suite, papers spread across every surface, laptops open, coffee brewing constantly. I pull up files I've been collecting for months. Father's fraudulent business dealings, forged contracts, embezzled funds. Jasmine adds medical records from Mother's repeated accidents, bank statements showing Father's complete financial control, legal documents with signatures that don't look quite right. Then there are the audio recordings. Mother's forced disownment of me. Father's murder for hire instructions. Fragments of arguments captured on the security footage Mr. Park saved. The DNA results that prove Jasmine isn't Father's biological daughter, but reveal a deeper story of violence and control. We build our case like architects constructing a fortress, every piece of evidence another brick in a structure designed to be unassailable. Each document tells part of the story, but together they paint a complete picture of a man who wielded power as a weapon, who destroyed anyone who challenged him, who was willing to commit murder rather than face the consequences of his own crimes. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Jasmine says around dawn, her fingers flying over her keyboard as she organizes files into categories for our legal team. "I'm helping destroy my own father, or the man I thought was my father. I don't even know what to call him anymore." "You're helping stop a dangerous criminal," I correct gently. "There's no shame in that." "I know, intellectually I know that, but emotionally," she stops, her hands hovering over the keyboard. "He's going to hate me for this, more than he already does. And when this is all over, I'll have no family left. No father, no mother if the stress kills her, no Darius because apparently he's been using me all along." "You have me," I say, and I mean it more than I've meant anything. "We're sisters, Jasmine. Half-sisters, technically, but that doesn't matter. We're family now. The real kind, the kind you choose and build instead of the kind you're just born into." She looks at me with tears in her eyes, then comes around the table and hugs me. We stand there for a long moment, two women who spent most of their lives as manufactured rivals, now united against the system that created that rivalry. We're still compiling evidence when my phone rings. Jennifer, my assistant, her voice tight with worry. "Monica, it's Evelyn. She collapsed during our morning meeting. The paramedics just took her to Emory Hospital. You need to come." The world tilts again. I look at Jasmine, see my panic reflected in her face. "Go," she says immediately. "I'll keep working here. I'll call if anything happens." The hospital feels like déjà vu. Wasn't I just here after Father's heart attack? But this is different. Evelyn is different. She's not my tormentor, but my savior, not my enemy, but my chosen mother, the woman who taught me to be strong when I'd forgotten how. I find her in a private room hooked up to monitors that beep with irregular rhythm. She looks smaller than I've ever seen her, diminished by the hospital gown and the tubes running into her arms. Her eyes are closed, but they open when I take her hand. "Monica, baby." Her voice is weak, but still carries that warmth I've relied on for a decade. "You look terrible. When's the last time you slept? When's the last time you took care of yourself?" I counter. But the joke falls flat. "The doctors say your heart is weak. The stress from Darius is not your fault," she interrupts firmly. Don't you dare blame yourself for my son's choices or for my body's failures. I'm old Monica. This ticker has been running on borrowed time for years. You're not that old and you're not dying. You're going to rest and recover and I'm going to be at that trial. Her grip on my hand tightens with surprising strength. Don't try to talk me out of it. I need to see this through. Your father, what he did to you and your mother, that's part of this too. You're my daughter now, Monica. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And I protect my daughter. Even if it kills you. Even then. She smiles, though it costs her visible effort. But preferably not. I've got things to live for now, including watching you take down a monster and seeing you finally get the justice you deserve. The doctors insist she stay for at least 3 days of observation and treatment. Her heart is under too much strain, they say. She needs medication adjustments and complete rest. But I know Evelyn. I know she'll discharge herself if she has to, will show up to that courthouse in a wheelchair if necessary because once she commits to something, she sees it through. That afternoon, I hire a private security firm. 2 bodyguards for me, 2 for Jasmine, surveillance on both our locations, and background checks on anyone who comes within our orbit. The murder-for-hire plot is too specific, too detailed, too real to ignore. Martinez is out there somewhere, possibly already watching, definitely waiting for an opportunity. Jasmine moves into my new hotel suite that evening. We've changed locations, registered under fake names, told no one where we are except our lawyers and the detectives handling Father's case. She brings a single suitcase, and I notice it's the same size as the one I left home with 10 years ago. Something about that symmetry feels significant, like we're both starting over, both refugees from the same war. This is surreal, she says, looking around the 2-bedroom suite with its anonymous corporate furnishings and bulletproof windows I specifically requested. A week ago, I was getting married. Now I'm hiding from assassins and preparing to testify against the man who raised me. Welcome to my life, I say with dark humor. It's been like this for 10 years, just in different ways. We spend the evening preparing for tomorrow's preliminary hearing where charges will be formally presented and Father will learn the full extent of what he's facing. The murder-for-hire charges are serious enough to keep him in custody, but my lawyer wants to add the fraud, embezzlement, and domestic violence charges too. Make it clear this isn't just about one crime but a pattern of criminal behavior spanning decades. Mother still hasn't left the hospital. She's been staying with Father despite everything, though the detectives told us she's cooperating fully with their investigation. I want to go to her, want to talk to her about the letters and the money and the broken wrist. But my lawyer advises against any contact before the trial. Too much risk of appearing to coordinate testimony, too many opportunities for things to go wrong. The night before the hearing, I stand at the window of our suite looking out at Atlanta's skyline. Jasmine comes to stand beside me, and we're quiet for a long moment, each lost in our own thoughts about how we got here and where we're going next. Are you scared? She asks finally. Terrified, I admit, but also ready. I've been ready for this for 10 years, even when I didn't know this was what I was preparing for. Tomorrow we'll walk into that courthouse and begin the process of dismantling a man who thought he was untouchable. Tomorrow the family that tried to erase me will see exactly what I've become. Tomorrow, justice begins. I think about all the evidence we've compiled, all the witnesses ready to testify, all the years of pain about to be validated in a court of law. I think about Mother's broken wrist and the Bible she hid in my suitcase and the life insurance she bought with money from selling her jewelry. I think about Jasmine's courage in choosing truth over comfort, sister over father. I think about Evelyn in her hospital bed refusing to miss the reckoning she helped make possible. The wind whips across the city carrying the promise of rain. I press my hand against the cold glass and whisper words meant for Father, for fate, for the universe itself. Tomorrow, we end this. The police arrive within 15 minutes of my call, 2 detectives who listen with increasingly grim expressions as Jasmine and I walk them through everything we've found. They photograph the evidence bag, the journal, and the SD card, take our statements with meticulous care. By midnight, father is arrested in his hospital bed where he's been recovering from his heart attack, charged with conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation of murder for hire. The civil trial that was already scheduled becomes something far more serious. The DA files additional criminal charges, and what was supposed to be a case about fraud and financial malfeasance transforms into a murder-for-hire prosecution that captures national attention. 3 weeks later, I sit in the courtroom beside Jasmine, our hands clasped together as we wait for the proceedings to begin. The gallery is packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and members of our extended family who can't seem to decide which side they're on. Mother sits in the back row, her face hidden behind dark sunglasses, her hands twisted in her lap. Father enters in an orange jumpsuit, his wrists shackled, looking older and smaller than I've ever seen him. But when his eyes find mine, there's still that familiar hatred burning beneath the surface. Still that conviction that he's the victim in all of this. The judge calls the court to order, and father's lawyer, a different one now, the previous attorney having wisely declined to continue representation, stands to make his opening statement. He's barely 3 sentences in when the DA interrupts. Your Honor, before we proceed with opening statements, the state has additional evidence and a witness that directly pertains to the charges against the defendant. Father's lawyer sputters in protest. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We haven't been notified of any additional witnesses. This is a violation of... The witness came forward voluntarily only 48 hours ago. The DA interjects smoothly. Given the time-sensitive nature of his testimony and the fact that he's currently in federal custody, we moved as quickly as legally permissible. The defense received notification yesterday evening. The judge considers this, then nods. I'll allow it. Call your witness. The DA signals to the bailiff, who opens the side door. 2 federal marshals enter first, followed by a man in handcuffs, wearing a prison jumpsuit. He's Latino, probably in his early 40s, with a calm, almost bored expression that suggests this isn't his first time testifying in court. Father's face drains of all color. His hands grip the edge of the defense table so hard his knuckles turn white. Please state your name for the record, the DA says once the man is seated at the witness stand. Juan Martinez. His voice is steady, professional, unaccented. Most people in my former line of work knew me as J. Martinez. And what was your former line of work, Mr. Martinez? I was a contract killer. I specialized in making murders look like accidents. I operated primarily in the southeastern United States for approximately 15 years before my arrest. The courtroom erupts in whispers. The judge's gavel comes down hard, demanding silence. Mr. Martinez, you're currently in federal custody on weapons charges, is that correct? Yes. I was arrested 3 weeks ago during an unrelated investigation. The federal prosecutor offered me a deal immunity from the murder-for-hire charges in exchange for my full cooperation in this case. And are you here today as part of that cooperation agreement? I am. The DA approaches the witness stand holding a folder. Mr. Martinez. Do you recognize the defendant, Robert Johnson? Martinez turns to look directly at father, his expression unchanging. Yes, that's the man who hired me to kill his daughter. The courtroom explodes again. Reporters frantically type on their phones. Spectators gasp and whisper. The judge's gavel pounds repeatedly until order is restored. Please describe the nature of your arrangement with Mr. Johnson. The DA continues. He contacted me approximately 2 months ago through an encrypted messaging service I use for clients. Said he had a problem that needed permanent resolution. We met in person at a parking garage downtown. He showed me photographs of his daughter, Monica Johnson, gave me her address, her daily routines, her schedule. He wanted it to look like an accident, specifically requested a vehicle collision. Martinez speaks with the detached professionalism of someone describing a business transaction, which I suppose to him it was. He paid me $50,000 upfront wired to an offshore account I control, promised another $50,000 upon completion of the job. I have bank records documenting the transfer screenshots of our encrypted messages and audio recordings of our phone conversations where he gave explicit instructions. The DA presents each piece of evidence, methodically bank statements showing father's wire transfer printed messages with timestamps and IP addresses, and finally the audio recording Jasmine found. Father's voice fills the courtroom, damning and undeniable. "I want her dead, Martinez. I don't care how you do it, just make it clean. No traces back to me. My daughter has taken everything from me. My company, my reputation, my control over my own life. That bitch has destroyed me, and she'll pay with her life." As the recording plays, I watch father's face transform from pale shock to crimson rage. His breathing becomes rapid and shallow. His lawyer puts a restraining hand on his arm, whispering urgently, but father isn't listening anymore. The recording continues, father's voice growing more venomous. "Make sure she suffers, Martinez. I want her last moments to be filled with the knowledge that she never should have come back, that she never should have challenged me, that failures like her don't get to win." Something in father snaps. He explodes from his seat, his shackled hands slamming down on the table with enough force to make everyone jump. "She deserves it!" he screams, spittle flying from his mouth. "She destroyed me. She took everything." His lawyer tries desperately to pull him back down, but father shoves him away with surprising strength for a man recovering from a heart attack. "That ungrateful bitch stole my company. She humiliated me in front of everyone. She deserves to die for what she's done." The bailiffs rush forward, but father is already moving toward me, his eyes wild with a hatred so pure it's almost transcendent. He's shouting incoherently now, rage overriding any sense of self-preservation. "You were always worthless, always a disappointment, always a failure." His voice echoes off the marble walls as 3 bailiffs tackle him, wrestling him to the ground. "I should have finished you years ago. I should have killed you myself instead of paying someone else to do it." They pin him down, snapping additional handcuffs onto his wrists while he continues to thrash and scream. "You'll never win. You hear me? Never. I'll destroy you if it's the last thing I do. You were a mistake from the day you were born. I should have drowned you when I had the chance." 2 more bailiffs join the struggle, and together they haul father to his feet, dragging him backward toward the holding cell. But even as they pull him away, he's still screaming, still hurling abuse, still confessing to attempted murder in front of a packed courtroom full of witnesses and recording devices. "I hate you. I've always hated you. You should be dead. You should be—" The door to the holding cell slams shut, cutting off his voice mid-sentence. The silence that follows is profound, broken only by the heavy breathing of the bailiffs and the frantic scribbling of court reporters documenting every word of father's meltdown. The judge clears his throat, his face pale. "Let the record show that the defendant has just confessed to conspiracy to commit murder in open court. Given this outburst and the evidence presented, I'm revoking bail and ordering the defendant held without bond pending sentencing. This court is adjourned." The gavel comes down with finality. I sit frozen in my seat as the courtroom slowly empties, unable to process what just happened. My father, the man who once pushed me on swings, who taught me to ride a bike, who helped me with homework, just screamed his hatred for me in front of dozens of witnesses. Just confessed to trying to have me murdered. Just proved beyond any shadow of doubt that his rage was real and his intent was deadly. Jasmine is crying beside me, though, whether from relief or horror, I can't tell. Our lawyer leans over, speaking words I don't really hear about next steps and sentencing hearings and victim impact statements. We won. It's over. Father will spend the rest of his life in prison, and I'm finally truly safe from him. So why does victory taste like ashes? Eventually, Jasmine helps me stand and we make our way through the courthouse halls, surrounded by bodyguards past cameras and shouted questions and the flash of phones capturing this moment for posterity. Outside the courthouse steps are chaos, but through the crowd I spot a familiar black car idling at the curb. Evelyn sits in the back seat, visible through the open window. She looks even more fragile than she did at the talk show, taping her skin almost translucent, her eyes sunken. But she's here having discharged herself from the hospital against medical advice once again. I slide into the car beside her and she takes my hand with fingers that feel like bird bones. "You did it, baby," she whispers. "Justice." "We did it." I correct, squeezing her hand gently. "I couldn't have survived any of this without you." She smiles, but there's profound sadness in it. Then she reaches into her purse and pulls out a sealed cream-colored envelope, the same one she tried to give me weeks ago. "There's one more thing you need to know." I take the envelope from Evelyn's trembling hands, my name written across the front in handwriting I don't recognize. Inside are official-looking documents, insurance policies, premium payment receipts, legal forms with signatures and notary seals. "Your mother came to see me 11 years ago," Evelyn says quietly, her voice barely audible over the sound of traffic outside the car. "A month before you were disowned. She found me through business connections, said she'd heard I helped young women in difficult situations. She was terrified, Monica, shaking so badly she could barely hold her teacup." I stare at the policy documents, my eyes catching on the date 11 years ago, exactly as Evelyn said. The month before my life fell apart. "She told me she knew something terrible was coming," Evelyn continues. "That your father was planning to force you into a marriage you didn't want, and she knew you'd refuse. She knew what he'd do when you did. She couldn't stop him, she'd tried before and paid dearly for it, but she could do this one thing." I flip through the pages, finding the policy details. $2 million in life insurance purchased with Margaret Johnson as the policy owner and Monica Johnson as the sole beneficiary. The first premium paid with a cashier's check, every subsequent payment documented with receipts spanning 11 years. "She sold her jewelry," Evelyn explains. "Pieces her own mother had given her, things that had been in her family for generations. Your father never noticed they were gone, he'd never paid attention to what she wore. She got enough to buy the policy and pay the first year's premiums. After that, she took a night shift cleaning office buildings. Told your father she was volunteering at church. She worked from midnight to 4 in the morning, then came home and pretended she'd been asleep the whole time." My hands shake so badly, the papers rustle. For 11 years. For 11 years. She paid every premium on time, never missed one, even when the work destroyed her body and the exhaustion nearly killed her. Because this was the only way she could protect you. The only way she could make sure you'd survive, even if she couldn't save you from what was coming. There's another document in the envelope, a letter written in Mother's careful script on cream-colored stationery. My vision blurs with tears as I begin to read. "My darling Monica, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger while I lived. I'm sorry I couldn't stand up to your father when it mattered. I'm sorry I let him hurt you, hurt both my daughters, hurt me. I failed you in every way a mother can fail, and I will carry that shame to whatever comes after this life. But I could do this. I could work those night shifts when my bones ached and my heart was giving out. I could make sure you'd be okay even if I failed you in every other way. This money is yours, bought with the only things I truly owned, my mother's jewelry and my labor. Use it however you need. Build something beautiful. Build something I never had the courage to build. You were never my failure, Monica. You were always my greatest pride. You were the one who stood up when I couldn't. You were the one who chose freedom over comfort, truth over lies. You became everything I wished I could be. And even when I couldn't show it, even when I had to pretend otherwise to keep us both alive, I believed in you. Every single day I believed in you. I love you, my brave girl. I'm sorry I couldn't say it when it mattered. I'm sorry for everything I couldn't do. But please know, this you were loved. You are loved. And you always will be. Build something beautiful with this, Monica. Make my suffering mean something. Turn my silence into your voice. Love always and forever, Mama. I can't see through my tears anymore. The letter falls into my lap as I collapse against Evelyn, sobbing for the mother who worked herself to death to protect me, who paid for my future with her jewelry and her health and her midnight hours, who couldn't save me from the exile, but could ensure I'd survive it. She died 2 weeks ago, Evelyn says softly, stroking my hair like I'm a child. The insurance company contacted me because I was listed as the executor. Your mother wanted to make sure you got this, even if your father tried to interfere. She planned for everything, Monica, even her own death. Mother's heart gave out in her sleep. She never woke up to see father arrested, never saw justice served, never got to witness my victory. But maybe she didn't need to. Maybe she'd already won her own battle by making sure I could fight mine. 6 months later, Jasmine and I stand outside a renovated building in downtown Atlanta. The sign above the door reads, "The Resilient Phoenix Foundation," in gold letters that catch the morning sun. Inside, we've created what Mother never had: a sanctuary for women escaping domestic violence, a place that provides legal support, job training, temporary housing, and counseling. Everything a woman needs to build a new life when her old one has been destroyed. We funded it with Mother's life insurance money, every dollar of it going toward the foundation. Evelyn contributed additional capital and serves on our board despite her declining health. Jasmine left Darius that divorce is still pending and threw herself into this work with a passion I never knew she had. She says it's her way of honoring both the mother who suffered and the sister she almost lost. The opening ceremony brings together survivors, advocates, donors, and media. The room buzzes with energy and hope, emotions I never thought I'd associate with my family's legacy. Evelyn sits in the front row wrapped in a blanket, despite the warm Atlanta summer, her face gaunt, but her eyes bright. Beside her, Jasmine holds her infant daughter Margaret, named after our mother, who sleeps peacefully through the noise. On the wall behind the podium hangs a photograph of Mother taken when she was young and happy, before father destroyed that light in her eyes. Below it, a plaque reads, "In memory of Margaret Johnson, who fought in silence so others could speak." I step up to the podium, looking out at the faces gathered here. Some are women we've already helped. Others are volunteers and supporters. Still others are people who simply heard our story and wanted to witness this moment. They're all here because they understand that trauma doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something transformative. My mother spent most of her life trapped in an abusive marriage. I begin, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. She endured physical violence, financial control, emotional manipulation, and isolation from everyone who might have helped her escape. To the outside world, she looked complicit in her husband's cruelty. But the truth was more complex. She was a woman making impossible choices in an impossible situation, trying to protect her daughters the only ways she knew how. I pause, letting my eyes find Jasmine, then Evelyn, then the photo of Mother. They tried to break us. My father, the system that failed to protect my mother, the society that taught us to keep family secrets no matter the cost. They tried to erase me, silence her, destroy any evidence that their perfect image was built on violence and lies. But we're still here. My mother kept me alive through her sacrifice. My sister found the courage to choose truth over comfort. And together we're building something they never could, a legacy of love, not fear. The audience applauses, but I'm not finished. This foundation exists because my mother worked midnight shifts for 11 years to buy me a future. It exists because she turned her suffering into purpose, her silence into our voice. Every woman who walks through these doors will find what my mother never had: options, resources, a community that believes her and supports her. They'll find proof that they're not alone, that survival is possible, that they can build lives beyond the trauma. I look directly at Mother's photograph, speaking to her as much as to the room. Mama, I hope wherever you are you can see this. I hope you know that your sacrifice wasn't in vain. You gave me life twice, once when you bore me, and once when you bought me a future with everything you had. I promise you I've built something beautiful with it. We've built something beautiful. The ceremony continues with speeches from survivors and advocates, with tours of our facilities and explanations of our programs. But later, when the crowd has thinned and the sun is setting over Atlanta, I stand alone in the room with Mother's photograph. They called me a failure. I whisper to her image. Your husband, their family, everyone who watched me get thrown out that night. They said I'd never amount to anything. But I became everything they feared, and everything I needed to be. I became strong enough to survive without them, successful enough to threaten their lies, brave enough to demand justice, and compassionate enough to turn their cruelty into purpose. I touch the frame gently, feeling the weight of everything that's brought me to this moment. And that's the real power, Mama. Not what they took from me, but what I built because they did. And that's where my story ends, or perhaps where it truly begins. 10 years ago, I walked out of my family's house with nothing but a suitcase and my mother's Bible. I slept in my car, worked double shifts at a diner, and wondered if I'd ever be more than the failure they said I was. Today, I run a billion-dollar investment firm and a foundation that's helped hundreds of women escape the same kind of abuse my mother endured. My father is in prison where he belongs. My sister and I have rebuilt our relationship on honesty instead of rivalry, and my mother's sacrifice became the seed that grew into something she never got to see, but always believed was possible. This journey taught me that family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who believe in you when you can't believe in yourself. It's about Evelyn, who saw potential in a broken waitress and invested everything to help her rise. It's about Jasmine, who chose courage over comfort and sister over father. It's about my mother, who worked in silence so I could speak, who suffered so I could survive, who gave everything she had to ensure I'd have a chance at everything she never did. But here's what I want you to understand, especially if you're watching this and seeing pieces of your own story reflected in mine. Abuse thrives in silence. Control depends on isolation. Toxic families survive by convincing you that you're the problem, that you're too weak to make it on your own, that leaving would be worse than staying. They're lying. I'm living proof that you can lose everything and still build something beautiful, that you can be discarded by the people who were supposed to love you, and find real love with people who choose you. That rock bottom isn't the end, it's just the foundation for everything you're about to become. If my story resonated with you, if you've faced family betrayal or domestic violence or the pain of being cast out by people who should have protected you, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below, telling me what part of this journey hit closest to home. Was it the moment I discovered my mother's letters? The revelation about Jasmine's true parentage, the confrontation with my father in court? Or maybe it was something else entirely, some small detail that reminded you of your own battle. Your story matters. Your survival matters. And sharing it might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found value in this story, if it moved you or inspired you or made you think differently about family and forgiveness and the power of choosing yourself, please subscribe to this channel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. We share true accounts of family drama, revenge, redemption, and the complicated reality of choosing peace over toxicity. These aren't fairy tales with easy endings. They're real stories about real people who survived real trauma and came out stronger on the other side. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling with a toxic family situation. Someone who's been told they're not enough. Someone who needs to know that leaving is possible, that survival is possible, that building something beautiful from the ruins of what destroyed you is absolutely, completely possible. Because that's what we do here. We tell the stories that prove you're not alone, that your pain is valid, and that your future is still unwritten, no matter what your past looks like. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, they called me a failure, but I became everything they feared and everything I needed to be. You can too.